Welcome in, everybody, to another edition of the Splatoon 3 North American League 2026 season. This is Event 8, regular season, week 6, and we are so excited to welcome you in for some top 8 action. My name is Shiny Hunter Zach, and joining me today, as always, are two fantastic commentators to be with, Milana and Saf. And Milana, I want to start with you. How are you today, and what are you looking forward to?
I'm just looking forward to seeing some really good Splatoon matches. We have some really awesome teams that made top 8 today. A couple of fan favorites have not decided to join, so people, that have placed incredibly well historically have not joined today's tournament. So we get to see a couple of new faces, a couple of new teams. I'm looking forward to it.
And Saf, very fortunate to have you on the broadcast as well. Same question to you. What are you looking forward to?
Dude, I'm just happy to be here. I'm just happy to be sitting in my chair and get to see both of your beautiful faces. And the fact that we have a top 8 where a lot of our familiar top dog type folks are missing. So I kind of feel like we have a crapshoot of a top 8 today to figure out with you all.
Well, we will certainly get into the top 8, but before that, let's take you to the schedule overall for the Splatoon 3 North American League. We, of course, had the show, which comes out every Friday at 10 a.m. Pacific, and now you're witnessing top 8. We had the ladder portion before this, happens on Saturdays, and on Sundays, you can, of course, check out the Splatoon 3 North American League Sunday Scrim. That's Sundays at noon Pacific time, including tomorrow, and it all leads up to the Splatoon 3 North American League 2026 playoffs happening on June 20th and 21st. With live streams at noon Pacific on both days. Let's take a look at the points now. Of course, for the ladder, each of our top 8 teams earned 60 points for their 1st through 8th place finishes, and they can earn up to an additional 40 points en route to try and get as many points through up to 4 events leading up to making the playoffs. And then as we go on here, of course, we'll take a look at the format and the standings coming up in just a bit as well. Standings are going to be for the entire season. So, Milana, I want to throw it to you here. Take us through what you're seeing in our season standings as we take a look at our entire top 16.
So what I love to see is Milky Way just incredibly dominant throughout this whole season so far, earning a whopping 400 points, which is the maximum number of points you can get with those 4 events that count towards your season final standings. But not far behind is Moonlight, Duck Motif, and Content Cat, some popular teams that we've seen coming through these last few weeks. So I'm looking forward to seeing a couple of these teams come back this week and seeing how they perform as well.
And Saf, quickly to you on the season standings. A few teams without the 4 or more events under their belt. Any teams that you're looking out to make a splash in our last few weeks of the regular season?
Yes, and those teams happen to be 3 that are in our top 8 today. That is NME, Heelbook, and 37 Handsome Boys. Because again, if you're someone like Milky Way or the Moonlights of the world, you're like, yeah, okay, I already have my 4 events in. I have all these points. I know that playoffs are looking very imminent for me. But I think that's what makes today so exciting from our side of things is that you have, okay, well, what about the rest of the top 8 in the playoffs that we're going to see, right? So you have those 3 teams that are in top 8 today fighting their way up to try to get in top 8 for the total. And I'm thinking if some of these folks are not going to be around today that are in top 8, this could really change a lot. This could really change some things and shift some of the standings that we get to see moving forward in the season.
Well, as we begin our top 8, let's go ahead and take a look at the rules for top 8. We have best of 5 the entire way through. The higher seed will start by choosing the mode, and the lower seed will choose the stage, that of course being the seeding from the ladder portion. After that first game, it'll be the winning team that chooses the mode and the losing team choosing the stage. Both have their own advantages for sure. And as far as game modes go, every game mode is available between Turf War, Clam Blitz, Splat Zones, Tower Control, and Rainmaker, but each mode can only be played once per match. You have to choose them very carefully if you're in the position to choose the mode. You also have to be careful, Milana, when choosing the stage. We have 12 wonderful stages to choose from. Anything that you want to see played today?
I just love Robo Ramen. You know, I'm just a personal a fan of ramen in general. And we haven't seen too much of Robo Ramen as this season has kind of continued down. So I'm looking forward to maybe seeing a little bit of a shakeup, perhaps.
Well, and we have our bracket to take a look at as well. The teams that will actually be playing on these stages and making these decisions. And Saf, taking a look here, we have the #1 seed Enemy taking on Endroll. We have Scuba versus Content Cat, Duck Motif versus 37 Handsome Boys, and Heal Book versus LFN. And I want to mention our first match here is going to be between the #2 seeded Duck Motif and the #7 seeded 37 Handsome Boys. What are your initial impressions, Saf, of these two teams?
I'm really just thinking about last season and the journey and the voyage that Duck Motif had to take last season. For those of you that maybe were unfamiliar, Duck Motif played in almost every single event, including preseason, plus or minus like 1 or 2 days. So constant Splatoon all the time for weeks on end, and also playing in other things too, and not to mention like their own team practice. So really, really high stakes if you're on Duck Motif. Really, like the commitment factor for me is so strong with Duck Motif. So I think that's something that I'm really thinking about a lot going into this first game, knowing that Duck Motif is very comfortable in being in a top 8 scenario. But just the fact of the matter is that there has been so much improvement and so much commitment to the game. And it really makes me think of like IRL sports teams out there and just how committed players can get and how dedicated they get to the lifestyle that the game has. And so Duck Motif is kind of on that same place for me. So.
You're going to be rare to miss me with a sports reference, so keep them coming all day, if you will. Milana, we have our first mode in. It is going to be Splat Zones, the choice here from Duck Motif, since it's the first time we're seeing it or any mode today. Let's go ahead and break down the rules for how Splat Zones is played.
Sure. Splat Zones is a little bit like Turf War, but it's localized mostly to the center of the stage. You have to control a designated Splat Zone by covering that area with your team's ink. As you hold on to that team's zone, or the zone in the middle of the stage, you have a counter tick down. If neither of the team makes that counter hit 0, then the team that makes it closest to that point will be deemed the winner.
And we already have the stage in as well, and it is going to be Crab Leg Capital. Milana, will stick with you here. It looks to be not quite in the top 3 as far as stages being played on Splat Zones, but it's close. It's up there. It's got 7 plays in previous top 8s. What are you thinking about this stage and mode combination?
Yeah, I think something that we have to consider about Crab Leg Capital is that it is kind of close quarters fighting, that there is going to be that grates on top of that center zone in the middle of the stage that maybe both of the teams will utilize with their anchor players. So whether they decide to bring, say, a Snipe Rider player, or whether they decide to bring something like a heavy Splatling, that is going to be kind of the key area that both teams are going to have to focus on to be able to maintain the zone for as long as possible.
And Saf, we've given some discussion to Duck Motif. How about 37 Handsome Boys? They do have a top 8 under their belt from week 3, tied for 7th. They did lose in that top 8 of week 3 to Duck Motif 3-1. Is this maybe the time where they can turn that around?
Well, yeah, it's a rematch. The amount of energy and momentum that goes into a rematch type battle, I mean, 37 Handsome Boys has got to be feeling a lot of energy trying to come into top 8, and especially going against maybe a bracket rival, if you will, with Duck Motif. So, and also the fact that there's 37 of them, but only 4 can actually play at a time.
Well,
can we talk about that?
The 4 we're going to be looking at potentially are Giddy, Grizz, Jax, Fishy, and Noah. And Milana, looks like they've been running a composition that'll be akin to or similar to a heavy Splatling or a roller, which is very interesting as a weapon selection. A blaster, maybe even a custom blaster, or to round it out, the NZAP 85. Anything there stand out as a potential advantage against Duck Motif?
Yeah, even not just beyond the team kind of battle right here, but even considering the stage, right? We're at Crab Leg Capital, and in order for the teams to make it to the zone, they do have to drop off of a ledge, which if you have a roller player or if you have a blaster player, it really does benefit because you can camp underneath that drop to be able to prepare for any ambush that your opponents make.
Well, we're getting into top 8 here. It's our first round. Shout out to Czar on the spec cam as we get into game 1. It's Duck Motif taking on 37 Handsome Boys. Saf, what are you seeing from the weapons that we have here?
I mean, Caden with those squelchy dualies, oh my goodness gracious. Not something that I really see very often getting played in top 8 scenarios like this, but I really love how Wavebreaker has been making a comeback on its own, and obviously proving so, because that's Duck Motif taking the zone and taking the lead.
37 Handsome Boys opting to go with the E-Leader, not the heavy splatling this time around, and joining it with the Forge Splattershot Pro, which while not in the top 10 has been very popular as Red Shell zips around as they are wont to do with that Zipcaster. Very common to see them on a brush style of weapon. Jex getting the pick there with that Forge. And Milana, important to note, do not see the roller this time around, instead swapping over to this Forge and maybe trying to back up this E-Leader as they advance.
Yeah, so that Forge is going to be a key player given that they have that Booyah Bomb. The Booyah Bomb might, being able to use it to be able to cover the zone and gain control. 37 Handsome Boys contesting the zone right here and being able to take the zone, adding a huge penalty onto Duck Motif's scoring right here. But with 2 down on both sides, both teams are really scrapping it out to be able to see which players can come out on top. But Duck Motif does take that zone back, and Red Shell in a prime position to keep all those players from 37 Handsome Boys back. That's going to be a key pick right there.
Yeah, that's a great pick. You were wondering, I mean, it looked like originally they were using the Zipcaster kind of defensively to ensure the zone cap, and now getting the additional trade there onto Jex. Saf, it seems like Duck Motif, who still has the zone and is getting through this penalty here, they have the more sort of in-your-face, close-range composition, where 37 Handsome Boys is kind of poking people out with theirs.
The name of the game for Red Shell is just insult to injury, because going ahead and using your Zipcaster, taking one out with you as you jump back, and then still living in the spawning area of 37 Handsome Boys. I mean, what is one to do when you have someone like Red Shell, who is just such a powerful aggressor on your side? But right now, 37 Handsome Boys ticking away at their points here. No penalty in sight. You can see that Duck Motif is kind of on the wings. Red Shell trying to lead the charge here, taking one out, but then jumping out in the process, maybe trying to support the team from the backside of the zone here. And it's actually going to be just enough to take it out of penalty, but not for 37 Handsome Boys to delay their presence on the zone here, because again, taking down into a neutral area twice, still ticking away on those points.
It's a get in, get out mentality for Red Shell as 37 Handsome Boys is going to take the lead. Noah helping to lead that charge, not having the heavy splatling, but they will have the ends up, which is great at that output. Having an auto bomb, seeing if they're going to drop down as well. Fishy going to get taken down as Red Shell was waiting for their opportunity. Vexen also with the burst bombs trying to advance forward, but they'll get taken out early, trying to cement it there with the Zipcaster, but it's going to be 3 down and now a full wipeout against Duck Motif. Not sure that they'll have any time to come back. They've got the Forge special as well to put a cap on things, and that will do it. 37 Handsome Boys, Milana, taking game 1 here on Crab Leg Capital.
They had just such a measured level of play right here. They were able to hold on to that zone. They were able to get the picks that they needed, and they were able to maybe target some of the key players from Duck Motif to be able to, maintain their space with that zone. And with that team wipe, it really was just the nail in the coffin at the end of that game.
And Saf, you were talking a bit about the specialties and the advantages too of each of the different players. You know, Red Shell being an example for Duck Motif, where they're going to be a constant threat. But it seemed like, especially in the latter half of that game, 37 Handsome Boys with some of their own weapons, like the Wave Breaker that their E-Leader was able to put out, and we're kind of looking around at the side angles that Duck Motif was trying to take. They had a pretty good presence while they were protecting the zone, mainly from behind the zone as opposed to in front of it.
Yeah, I think one of the main takeaways for this for me, Zach, is Kai'Sa had no room to get set up. So your pencil, your backline player has no space or time to get set up consistently, which thank you, Czar, actually, for this. Whenever Kai'Sa was on the camera, consistently there was suction bomb, splat bomb. There was something that was there to displace them and or take them out. I believe twice in that game, Kai'Sa unfortunately got taken out by a suction bomb. So if you don't even have your Snipe Rider player able to support you in the way that you need, like, what is Duck Motif going to do? So that could be the nail in the coffin for 37 Handsome Boys to keep moving forward, is just don't allow the Snipe Rider to get set up, because that basically took Kai'Sa out of the game, and it could have been like a 3v4 scenario.
And Milana, we talk about the mental side of the game that we don't always get a great insight to. And on paper, Duck Motif's comp really played well to the greats that kind of span across this entire stage. You've got the Splash-O-Matic that can have the Crab Tank moving around. You've got Red Shell, the Octobrush, which has great sort of run speed maneuverability. What went wrong in your mind that 37 Handsome Boys was able to capitalize on?
You know, I just wanted to kind of build off of what Saf was saying, right? Like, the Snipe Rider player is just such a key role, and not just because they're an anchor player, but because they also provide the Tacticooler. And without that Tacticooler, it delays when your teammates get splat to be able to come back into the action. And without that, like, speed and the immediate return back to that zone, it becomes just kind of a difficult position. And especially if you and your teammates get taken out one by one, you kind of stagger in that case, and the staggering definitely doesn't help anybody as well.
Well, Saf, in previous events, it has taken us multiple matches to get to this game mode, but we're getting it in bright and early this time around. Game 2 will be on Turf War, sticking similarly to the Splat Zones theme. First time we're seeing Turf War today. Let's go ahead into the rules for how it's played.
Sure. Turf War, you guys. So, as the text says, use the ink to expand your team's territory. That's everywhere. That is everywhere, not including the walls, not including the walls. Cover more turf than your opponent to win. You only have 3 minutes to do this, by the way, versus our other game modes that we have. You have at least 5 minutes and some change going into overtime. But this is a very small window to try to claim victory.
And Milana, the stage has come in. It is Hagglefish Market, a lot less parity than some of the other stages. This is third on the list with 7 times being played, not far behind Mako Mart at 8th and Crab Lake Capital, which is already out with 9 plays here. What are you thinking about this stage?
Yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of scrapping, a lot of feeling each other out in the center of this stage. We remember for Hagglefish Market, we have those 2 kind of alleyways that we want to consider. These alleyways are a path for your opponents to be able to flank you or have some sort of pincer tactic occurring. And especially with, I'm thinking Duck Motif with that ink brush or Octobrush, it could be pretty deadly if you are not keeping an eye on that. So I think that's what 37 Handsome Boys is going to have to focus on to be able to make sure that they don't get caught off guard.
Yeah, Saf, importantly, this is Duck Motif's stage pick. So you have kind of similar alleyways in a much smaller capacity on Crab Lake Capital. I guess the strategy for Duck Motif is you kind of expand the area through which your players that like to be in the trenches or sharking around to play around with and kind of use that to their advantage.
And that is like, you just described Red Shell to me. You just described that player to me, because Red Shell is somebody that wants to infiltrate. They want to infiltrate by flanking and by sneaking in to very, very uncomfortable positions for folks that might not want to be close quarters. But somebody like Red Shell is going to force you into that position, whether you like it or not. However, for 37 Handsome Boys, I mean, coming off a win like this against someone like Duck Motif, who happens to be kind of like a rival to you in other situations, there's probably a lot of momentum here for Duck Motif, or for 37 Handsome Boys. And again, I think that the key thing here is going to be making sure that Snipe Rider player, Kaisa, does not get well set up. However, you have different inking weapons coming to the forefront here. So Vexen is going to be on the Reflux, and you have Fishy opting in for the Big Swig.
Yeah, how about the Big Swig Roller Express coming out? Kind of an odd kit there with the Angle Shooter and the Ink Storm, and that's going to be joining with the NZAP 89. Of course, the 85 being the much more common variant, Milana, with that Tacticooler. 37 Handsome Boys prioritizing the Ink there, as they have 3 specials that are going to be having that job as they look to get advantage here on this stage.
Yeah, I mean, inking is going to be the name of the game, especially for a mode like Turf War. And, you know, I just want to give a special shout out to that NZAP 89 as myself, as an NZAP 89 fan. With those super jumps, it's going to create a lot of distance and force your teammates to kind of move backwards. And, you know, with 2 down on Duck Motif, Noah is in a great position to be able to hold on to all of this turf in the center of the stage and not really quite pushing very much forward on top of that. There's no need at this point. But as you can see, Duck Motif is currently in danger, and they're going to have to be really careful. But, you know, they're going to have to be really careful. But with their Snipe Rider player down, again, that Tacticooler delayed once more, it's going to be very tough.
Red Shell not able to help their team advance forward, as we see Duck Motif also favoring at least one weapon there with the Super Chumps. Caden swapping over to the custom variant of the Dually Squelchers. And as we projected, Saf, playing in these alleyways, once at least they're finally able to make it outside of their spawn area.
And I feel like with a game like this too, Zach, you don't want to like put all your cards out on the table in the first minute. Really, it's this last minute and a half where the points are really going to matter here. And I feel like 37 Handsome Boys kind of fooled us there at the beginning. They didn't really infiltrate or leave their spawn until almost like way past that 2-minute mark. So now that they have the center stage kind of all to themselves, and especially with 2 members down, the Chumps are also going to come out here. This last minute is looking real good if you're 37 Handsome Boys.
Yeah, and it seems like their strategy is more so a slow burn rather than overwhelming force, as they've mostly stayed around and just in front of this mid area. They haven't really deigned to go up this ramp and try and play in the court area of Duck Motif here, Milana, as we get into the last 40 seconds, and just Red Shell with the special online for Duck Motif.
Yeah, and 37 Handsome Boys with Jex right here. That Booyah Bomb also at the ready, but still 2 down on the side of Duck Motif. It feels like no matter when we look at Duck Motif, they always have at least 1 player down, and I think that's going to be a detriment for them, and especially with only 20 seconds left on the clock, 2 down, including their reflex player, this is going to be very tough for them to get back into the center of the stage.
13 seconds left to go. Duck Motif desperately trying to stay in it. That's going to be a big pick there on Fishy, but Red Shell gets taken out just after. Giddy Grizz getting displaced there by all 10 of the Tenta missiles. A few seconds left to go. Duck Motif desperately trying to get in, but 37 Handsome Boys responding with a super jump that'll go off. The sprinkler in mid as well. It did look like Duck Motif was mustering up some last second energy, but it will not be enough, as it's a 10 percentile victory, and that gives 37 Handsome Boys their second game win of the match here, Saf.
And I appreciate the patience with this one. And wasn't it so beautiful to go to the full map view and see the spawns painted to perfection? Because that really is, like, I think it's so silly, but that really is the key to success in Turf War a lot of the time. Yeah, a lot of the fight and whatever is happening in the center stage, but what is happening on the outskirts is what's important, that the other team or your opponent cannot touch as easily as you can. So really just trying to get every single corner that you can is going to lead to your success, and 37 Handsome Boys had it right from the get-go.
And Milana, to that point, I think overwhelmingly in Turf War, we see both teams typically bring out either a Reflux or a Reflux Milk. This time, the winning team, 37 Handsome Boys, did not have either of those weapons, instead prioritizing that NZAP 89 and the Big Swig Roller Express. What was their recipe for success here?
You know, I'm just gonna go out and say maybe it was the NZAP. Maybe it was the NZAP 89. Not because I'm biased or anything.
No, it's true.
No,
of course
true.
not.
Facts, I checked.
But really, I think it was you mentioned it during the game, that it was that measured play that they had, that no matter when we were, spectating, there was always a member of Duck Motif down, and using their specials, while their specials weren't like maybe the most offensive, but they definitely did displace many members of Duck Motif to kind of force themselves back into their spawn. And I think having that room to be able to turf up and that room to be able to prevent Duck Motif from coming back into mid, I think was definitely a key play for 37 Handsome Boys.
Yeah, it's a tough balance, right? Because there's this idea of overheating or getting overly offensive aggression, where you advance too far forward and you are going for too many picks, and then you get wiped out, and then it gets basically flipped on its head at that point. And I think 37 Handsome Boys did a good job of not playing too passive, but also not getting overly aggressive either. Saf, as we get into game number 3, it'll be the last mode pick for 37 Handsome Boys, regardless of the result, and they have opted to go for Clam Blitz as we take a look at the rules for how Clam Blitz is played.
And thank you for choosing me on this one. This is my favorite mode to play. It is the most robust in my mind of all the modes. Collect the 8 clams that will form a football and or a power clam. You have to use those power clams to break the basket open, and at that point is when you can throw individual clams in, and you have to bring it all the way down to 0, starting from 100. 1 clam is 3 points. The power clam itself is a whopping 20 points. This also does affect the penalty. Keep in mind out there, y'all. And if neither team scores the 100 points, the team with the fewest amount of points will win.
You know, Saf, I'm going to stick with you here as sort of the self-proclaimed Clam Blitz expert. We're in some ways breaking convention here because there's been this dedicated trifecta in a lot of these matches where the first 3 modes are zones, tower control, Rainmaker. And there's been very few instances where we break that. This time, we saw zones, yes, and then we went into Turf War and Clam Blitz. And it's going to be on Scorch Gorge, which is not exactly breaking convention as far as the stage goes for Clam Blitz. But what are you thinking 37 Handsome Boys wants to do here to try and maybe get a sweep out of this?
I'm just thinking that this is where they want to try to have some fun. Because if you want to try to make anything off the book work from your normal, Clam Blitz is the way to do that. It is a mode where you can really try all sorts of things to see what will work best for you. And if it doesn't, okay, yeah, but back to the drawing board. But this is the opportunity where those compositions that might be kind of off, or you're kind of like, how is this going to play or pan out? This is the mode to try that with. So maybe if 37 Handsome Boys is feeling like they're pretty far ahead, they're like, hey, why don't we try to experiment with something new? But also, I mean, if you're someone that like, hey, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, then don't change it. But are the stakes high for 37 Handsome Boys? That is what my question is.
Milana, pre-match, we mentioned just how tested and veteran this Duck Motif squad is. That has to include some matches in which they've been down in a similar situation to this. They're going to a pretty common pick here in Scorch Gorge. Do you think they're going to be able to pick themselves up by their bootstraps?
Yeah, I mean, if it's any team that can do it, it's definitely Duck Motif, right? We know, like Saf mentioned earlier in the cast, that they have played more games probably in the North American League than any other team out there. So, you know, if it's a team that can do it, it's Duck Motif.
Well, a potentially deciding game 3 here as we get into Clam Blitz on Scorch Gorge. Taking a look at the compositions, it looks like 37 Handsome Boys going back to that Forged Splattershot Pro and a custom blaster as well. And Saf, on the opposite side of things, we are going to see a temporary break in the action. But before that happened, a bit of interesting swap here as we saw Red Shell on that Comets variant of the Octobrush.
Oh,
So
that was
Saf-
to me. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I was like, wait, were you asking me a question? I got you. Yes. Okay. So one thing I already want to point out is that Red Shell, somebody that is a veteran at this game, like through and through, we can agree on that. Veteran at the game, has been playing Brush and Octobrush for quite some time. So I'm very interested in this Kraken Octobrush pick, especially just because the power of infiltration that Kraken has. And again, like that's the key word for me for Red Shell's infiltration. They want to get in there and be up close and personal. So the Kraken is going to allow them to do that. And especially in something like Clam Blitz, you want to have the follow-up ready to go if you are going to be the one to open up the basket and allow for your teammates to come in and provide the firepower to get the basket open. But that's a lot of trust that Red Shell has to have in the other folks of Duck Motif to really deliver on that.
And Milana, there does tend to be this kind of formula or strategy that teams have for Clam Blitz where they need an in. They need some way to get to the basket, whether that is forcing a 3 down or more situation, whether that's some kind of special that can pave the way for them. Do you think either of these teams, with either their experience or the weapons that we temporarily saw in that game 3, do you think they have kind of a winning strategy to make that happen, to get that all-important first pop of the basket?
Yeah, I mean, like, just to mention, you know, Red Shell's Brush pick, having that Kraken to be able to kind of push the rest of the team, their opponents back as they have their teammates jump into it, into the special, but like before they pop their special because they patched that out. But, you know, but yeah, so having their teammates be able to jump in and then using that kind of as a way to safeguard the rest of their teams, I think is going to be key for Duck Motif. But on the other side, we did see, I believe it was a custom blaster, and with the big bubbler, and that can definitely be beneficial as far as starting pushes as well.
Taking a look at the rest of the weapons we haven't really mentioned, we do have this kind of interplay, Saf, here between the Snipe Rider and the custom E-Leader. So that Kraken that you mentioned, as well as having beacons in order to get closer back to the action.
Oh, dude, and the custom E-Leader in the hands of Giddy Grizz is like, oh, you gotta be so careful with that, my guy. I mean, you have somebody that is like a charger veteran on the side of 37 Handsome Boys going against the veteran players of Duck Motif. So I mean, I am sat and I'm all eyes on this matchup here, especially because 37 Handsome Boys has really good economy on their side, but Duck Motif has the aggression on their side, and here comes that Kraken that I was talking about. But again, the delivery, it's the delivery, Mel, that's not there because Caden was taken out before Red Shell could really do some damage.
Yeah, that delivery was crazy.
Survivability, Milana. I don't know what we're going to see for the rest of this year.
No, I have no idea either. You know, like Saf mentioned, it's just Clam Blitz is like a three-part thing that you want to kind of consider, right? We have the Clams economy, we have the push, and we have the follow through. So if we're missing any part of that push, I think it becomes very difficult to make something meaningful happen. So like we saw here with the Kraken coming out, it didn't really make any sort of meaningful push because there was no one there to pick up that power clam and push that into the basket. So right here, 32 Handsome Boys, 2 down here, but Giddy Grizz does have that clam at the ready, that power clam at the ready, but Vex in here propping themselves up with that crab tank and hoping to create a little bit of space while the rest of Duck Motif is collecting clams to be able to make a push happen.
Yeah, this is exactly where you want that crab tank to be set up as Red Shell tries again to move forward with Kraken Royale. Spots one for 37 Handsome Boys that is marked with that power clam. Gets taken down though coming out of that Kraken Royale. Fishy not having to expend the triple splashdown either. So Saf still in this kind of feeling it out phase where neither team has been able to get a solid enough control of mid to make this push happen.
Not a solid control of mid by any means, but still really solid pushes nonetheless. You have had both sides being fully present in the basket area of their opponents, but there hasn't been the follow-up or like the other pieces to the puzzle available to actually really get something going. So we're 2.5 minutes left in the game and we're still in a neutral zone here, and we've had power clams appear on both sides. You actually have Giddy Grizz in the center with a Booyah Bomb here coming out from Jex to try to see if they can open something up, delaying the throw, really trying to calculate where this is going to be best utilized here. And now it's 37 Handsome Boys finally collapsing on that basket for Duck Motif.
Caden with some Kraken taming there as we see Fishy getting a nice pick, trying to continue this push. Noah having to back off, gets the pick there as well. Red Shell goes down. Kai coming back from spawn, trying to provide some defense here. For all the picks that they got, Milana, it's a push to 68, which is not incredible, but time is not on the side of Duck Motif as they look to counter.
Yeah, so even like we mentioned earlier, half of this game so far had been in a neutral stance, so having a push at all from 37 Handsome Boys to 68 is going to be beneficial as we, you know, continue this trend. And Giddy Grizz holding onto that power clam, 2 down again on the side of Duck Motif, but now 2 also down on the side of 37 Handsome Boys. They are, but you know, this is 37 Handsome Boys game to lose, which means that Duck Motif is going to have to gather these clams and make a push happen. Just 2 power clams would do it for them. So let's see if Duck Motif is able to do this in the last minute of the game.
Yeah, you're going to need a pretty big crab tank, which they're not going to get out of Vex, and partially countered by that Booyah Bomb as Giddy Grizz looking for the shot, just misses it onto Red Shell there. A couple specials already online though, so Duck Motif both with the clam advantage and with the makings of a solid push here. The 37 Handsome Boys do get pushed back and they will lose a member, so the NZEP that's been playing more like a 52 to be honest. Kai going down as well, and Saf, 37 Handsome Boys, this same strategy that we saw in Turf War where they're playing a little bit back but incredibly defensively.
Defensively indeed, because where the heck is Duck Motif in this basket area? Consistently having at least 1 to 2 people down. You had 2 people just spawn back in and 1 person going down on Duck Motif. They, like, the tools, the resources are not there quite yet for Duck Motif as we enter the last 15 seconds of the game here. 2 really successful basket pops coming out from 37 Handsome Boys. They just have to play the defense really strong to close this one out, and they know that this is the match point for them. But look at Kai! You have a Snipe Rider player sneaking in and getting into the basket to push it into overtime. And even though with 3 members down on Duck Motif, there's nobody there to try to follow it up. It could have been a recipe for disaster.
Kai trying a hero play while their team goes down behind them, and it will not be enough as 37 Handsome Boys with a 3-0 sweep in our winners quarterfinals over Duck Motif, sending them down to the loser side of the bracket. And Milana, I want to bring it to you for immediate reactions. I think that is not the result that we quite expected.
No, I mean, we mentioned that Doug Motif was coming into this top 8 bracket as the 2nd seed, whereas 37 Handsome Boys was the 7th seed. And, you know, generally these seedings are because of how they performed in the ladder stage. So we would expect that maybe the 2nd seed and the 7th seed, quite a big difference. Generally, we don't see this kind of result happening, but, you know, it's not impossible. We did see that one pretty insane Content Cat run the other week. I believe it was maybe week 2. So it does happen where maybe the seeding doesn't reflect all of your skills or reflect all of your expertise or reflect the result of the game, but it is surprising nonetheless.
Yeah, Content Cat, who is in the top 8 this week, is the 5th seed coming out of ladder. That was week 2 indeed, where they finished 2nd, only losing to Milky Way twice in that run. But Saf, I want to specifically throw it back to you to talk about the final, I would say, 15, 20 seconds, and then the overtime subsequently. That was just a mad dash by Duck Motif. One potential hero play, but also some flow aura state coming out from the side of 37 Handsome Boys.
Well, you know the story of the hero's journey, and I feel like in that moment when Kaizo was walking across the grate, they're like, man, is this play about me? Because I'm trying my best here to maintain some momentum and keep us into the game. But what I think is really successful, the hero journey all along was 37 Handsome Boys. Because the last time that they had to face up against Duck Motif, it didn't really end well for them. So you have to think of the amount of notes and things that they have taken from that. And they're like, okay, how do we implement this into the next time that we happen to face Duck Motif? And having it in a 3-0 scenario, I mean, it couldn't have gone better. You couldn't have asked for a better improvement from 37 Handsome Boys.
Well, let's take a look at our bracket here as we witnessed a 3-0 sweep by 37 Handsome Boys to send Duck Motif down to the loser's side of the bracket. Elsewhere in our winners quarterfinals, we do have one other match wrapped up. That's the 1v8 match as NME takes down Endrol 3-0, and they will await the winner of a hotly contested match between Scuba and Content Cat in your 4v5 matchup, 2-2 going to game 5. And in our final winners quarter match, we are also awaiting the result as LFN, the 6th seed from ladder, currently up 2-1 on Healbook, who is playing just their 3rd event of the regular season. They're looking to get some more results here in the final 3 weeks of the regular season. The winner of that game is Healbook, just now ties it as well. Ooh. At 2-2. We have the makings of a pretty interesting winners quarterfinals here, Milana. We will be spectating soon the enemy versus winner of Scuba and Content Cat match, but want to get your impressions just about the parity, which I've used that word a couple times, but it's so interesting to see a couple of matches be 3-0 sweeps and the others being so close to each other, both going to game 5.
Yeah, I mean, that's what makes tournaments interesting, right? When we have these teams that kind of go and they're really standing toe-to-toe with each other and being able to compete on the same footing, because, you know, that's what makes spectating these matches so interesting. But, you know, I do want to kind of mention that a score doesn't really show the entire story of what happens in a match, right? So even if something was, say, like a 3-0 sweep, that doesn't necessarily mean that there was no back and forth between the two teams. It just so happened that the scale kind of tipped in the favor of one of those teams more than the other, for the most part. So, you know, I think it's just something worth noting. So I'm looking forward to seeing which of these teams, whether Scuba or Content Cat, makes it into this winners semifinals, the winners semifinals, to see how they're gonna fare against Enemy.
And Saf, I want to highlight, you know, something that you mentioned as we were getting started on the day, which is that this is kind of a prove your worth day for a lot of these teams for multiple reasons. Some of it being they faced a lot of heavy competition from teams that are not playing this week, but a lot of it is we're getting down to the wire. We're in the final 3 weeks of the regular season, and these teams are still hungry for better results that are going to contribute to their 4 best event scores that will make up whether they get into the playoffs or not. So this is an important week for so many of these teams, and that has to feed into their hunger.
I think that the know or the prove your worth statement, if like really, I don't want to be that guy that's like, it really resonates with me, but it really it really resonates, because you have to think of the folks on Healbook, you have to think of the folks on Content Cat. I mean, you have players on those teams that have been touching the edge of high level for the longest time. Like, they have been trying to fight their way into high level and be with the FT Wins of the world, be with the Moonlights of the world. And they've gotten to play against those players before. But this stage right now today is where they can really try to contend to be like, we want to be those next teams in the future of any sort of event that happens. And I feel this way, especially about Healbook. I have very, very strong feelings about Healbook as a team. But I just love that this is the stage that we get to watch today, because it's so easy to kind of fall into the mindset of being like, oh, well, yeah, the Goliath team that has played in events over and over again, yeah, they're going to do really great. But today it's like, dude, I don't know. Yeah, a lot of the folks here from the season have good results. Like, don't get me wrong there. But really today, from everything that you've seen, because to Mel's point, you can have a crazy run like Content Cat in a week where something like that happens. And I feel like it's up in the air. It's up in the air with this top 8, because these are people that have been scratching high level for a long time, but you also don't have a lot of these big Goliath teams standing in your way to the gold. So I'm just like, can you tell I'm amped? I'm jazzed, dude. I'm jazzed.
And there is some kind of crazy disparity between a lot of these teams. So Content Cat is an example, best placement, second in top 8 in week 2, but they the very next week placed 21st in ladder. They had some tough games that they went up against. And again, the same point that Milana had, if they could be close, they had a 1-2 loss to Duck Motif. Again, ladder is best of 3. They had a 1-2 loss against the Shiggy Wiggy, who's been making it up there in that top 16. We'll take a look now at our updated bracket as we get closer to our winner semifinals. One match result is in. It will be Scuba who advances forward 3-2 victory in their match over Content Cat. It'll be Content Cat taking on End Roll as one of our 2 losers top 8 matches. Healbook versus LFN still ongoing in game 5. Milana, your immediate impression upon seeing that result?
You know, like I said, the score doesn't really say that much. I would love to be a fly on the wall of this Splatoon match to see what exactly happened to result in this 3-2, you know, the score. So I think that this is going to be super interesting. Scuba is not one that I've personally commentated, so I'm really looking forward to seeing what they have to bring to the forefront of the battlefield, and especially against a team as strong as Enemy, who is our first seed. But even beyond them being our first seed, they are just strong players. We've seen them time and time again. We've seen them in the last season of the North American League. So, you know, getting to see that kind of dynamic play out with each other, I think is going to be really interesting.
And as mentioned, it will be NME versus Scuba that we take a look at next. Before we do that, Saf, I want to get your impressions on sort of the shifting meta that we've seen between last season and this season of the Splatoon 3 North American League. We've had a lot of weapons stick around. Of course, the Snipe Rider 5H, 52 Gal Slosher, even the Splat Dualies, they've remained consistently in the top 10, even top 5 as weapons being played. But a lot of the other weapons have changed. The Heavy Splatling has really come into its own. We've seen a shift in Blaster play from the S-Blast 91, which is still seen occasionally, but over more so to the Blaster and custom Blaster variants especially. And a few more of the tactical weapons have entered the scene alongside the Snipe Rider 5H with a bit more prevalence, including the NZAP 85 and the Tri-Slosher Nouveau as examples.
Well, I'm thinking of the support players with that one, Zach, because for a while it kind of felt like Snipe Rider was the way to support your team. That was it. It was like done deal. The Snipe Rider was the way to do it. So I feel like now that we have more variety in the support weapons, you have a little bit of like, you have more flavor text, if you will, to add into your composition. Because yeah, okay, I want to play NZAP. So what does that look like? That's going to be the cooler and supporting weapon. Okay, XYZ is going to follow. Okay, well, maybe I want to play the heavy edit. Okay, so that is something that is a little more midline, but I can be a little bit quicker with using cooler. I can push up with you guys. Okay, so how do we formulate the composition after that? And then everything else kind of falls into line. So I think I'm someone that likes variety. I don't really want to see the same thing over and over again, because it gets to a point where, yeah, okay, I've seen the crab tank plays. I've seen the people set up with the Snipe Rider 5H on the really high ledges. Okay, get me an NZAP in there. Send them into the firefight, throw them into the 2v1, and then tell me what's going on. Because for me, that I think is what makes things spicy and keeps it interesting.
Well, Milana, we may very well see kind of this juxtaposition as NME today, it seems like, has more so been playing that NZAP 85. I think Dark has been the one manning that alongside the 96 gal. Dat Kid, of course, playing different varieties of brushes between the Ink Brush, Octobrush, and even the Paintbrush Nouveau today. 3Z, I think, kind of manning that 52 gal that is in that top 3 of weapons being played, rounded out by Zero, a very veteran long-term Splatoon player on weapons like the Forged Splattershot Pro, and that goes up against a Scuba team that likely would run this Snipe Rider 5H. Kara would be the one piloting either that or the heavy Splatling, and I peeked in earlier on one of their games. Kara was 21-2 against Swarm on a TC Mako Mart game, so that has to be intimidating to go up against, knowing the caliber that we're seeing in this event.
Yeah, I think something that NME has to consider is that what they're running is a very aggressive composition, right? We have a lot of heavy painters, but we have not that much range as a result, which means that they have to be really careful about a player like Kara, who can go, was it 21-2?
21-2.
21-2.
I mean, nothing, light work.
Yeah, light work. Easy, right? So with a player like Kara who can kind of stand farther away and be able to get the picks that they need. So either they're going to have to play their aggression really strategically, they're going to have to be able to kind of move forward and get the picks that they need, or they're going to have to maybe change up the strategies to kind of counteract a player like Kara who can pick them off from afar.
Yeah, and to round out the rest of Scuba's roster here, Grape may be going over to the Sloshers. It looks like Fornana, at least in the game that I saw earlier, was not playing. Could see, as they have a 5-player sort of roster, that could be something they go to. Also for Grape, the Forged Splattershot Pro to counter what NME is bringing. For Leafy, variants of Splatanas, namely the Splatana Stamper or Stickers variant of the Splatana Stamper. And then Mecha rounding it out, we could potentially see that Splash-O-Matic come through. So Saf, pretty standard traditional composition, but a lot of big threats on that roster as well.
Well, especially Leafy on that Stamper, dude, you gotta watch out. You gotta watch out, because Leafy is not afraid to jump in to any sort, if it's a 2v1, like they are not afraid to try to come in and support. It does not freak them out at all. They probably already know the steps that you're gonna take, along with their 10 steps that they already are ahead of you. So you have to watch out if Leafy is going to be coming down the turnpike at you to try to take a fight from you. So I really am hoping for the folks of Scuba to feel confident coming into the #1 seed of NME. And I know that there's a lot of experience here fighting the folks of NME from Scuba. So there is some game sense, there is some calculating that's already happening in the dugout, if you will, before the fight happens.
This is big brain time for all of our teams in top 8 as we take one more look at the bracket to see how top 8 was going to shake out, and it's going to be Heelbook taking down LFN 3-2. So the 2 higher seeds coming out of the ladder hang on in game 5s between Scuba and Heelbook. They will move on respectively to the winner semifinals. That means your losers top 8 matches will be Content Cat versus Endrol. And Milana, I kind of want to get your impression on LFN versus Duck Motif being a loser's top 8 match. That is a stacked match for one of these teams to go home this early.
Yeah, I mean, like we mentioned, Duck Motif got dropped pretty early as the number 2 seed in this top 8 tournament. So having them versus the 6 seed LFN, I think having them knowing that one of those teams is going to go home after this next match is going to be kind of hard hitting. And especially if I'm just considering ahead of time, hypothetically, if Duck Motif goes home, that's going to be a pretty early loss for somebody who was the 2nd seed in this tournament. So hopefully they are able to kind of get their strategies together and not get knocked out so early, but you never know what happens.
Well, Saf, for Enemy and Scuba, we do have the first stage and mode pick done. It is Splat Zones we'll be starting with again, this time on Mahi Mahi Resort, that did not initially see a ton of play, but over the course of the regular season has really come into its own. It's tied for 2nd in Splat Zones play so far this season.
Honestly, it makes sense to me, and I wonder too if it's just the challenge of the terrain changing, if that really just adds a lot of flair to the fight in general, and it's like, okay, yeah, this is the pick to choose. But also, I think when that terrain change happens, there's more to turf, there's more ground to cover, there's more special to build, there's more space for special to be built. So I'm not surprised that it is 2nd place in the choices for maps with this mode. And I'm wondering too, moving forward into something like this, how the aggression is going to play out. Because again, we were talking about Leafy on the Stamper, right? So Stamper is one of those things where, especially if you're using Zipcaster, you can fly into the spawn very easily. And you can opt to take the high ground very easily. And Leafy is somebody that is really quick to act on that. So I'm wondering, where is the defensive maneuvering going to come in against the threat of Scuba?
And Milana, you know I'm not one to typically toot my own horn. This was the stage and mode combination that was featured on the most recent Shiny Tips. And as part of that, you just see how many obstacles there are on this stage. It's like a paintball course out there. There's just so much dodging around to do on these little pillows and cushions as we get into game 1 of our winners semifinals here. What are you noticing from the compositions?
Yeah, I see very early that heavy splatling coming out from the side of Enemy. I think that is going to be able to kind of provide a little bit of coverage for their teammates Dark on that heavy splatling with that wave breaker as well. But an early cap of the zone by Scuba, and as you know, as Sap mentioned, Leafy really going kind of wild on this Stamper right here. And you know, with one down on the side of Enemy, they are kind of pushed a little bit back into their spawn. That crab take not getting as much mileage as they would hope. Booyah Bomb coming out, keeping Enemy away from that, and with already reaching about that 50 mark, the terrain is changing, and this is still Scuba's game.
Yeah, for a frontline weapon, the Stamper has just incredible range that's so hard to deal with, as we see Mecha getting the pick coming out of that crab take, supported there by the triple splashdown. Break gonna go down as we see Enemy trying to counter. Nice in front, direct on Leafy. I think that was the alternate shot that exploded right on top of them, and that Sap will give Enemy the N in their first zone cap of the day.
Dude, okay, right at the beginning, I was like, so why is Dat Kid not playing Brush? Why are we nerfing my boy here for a second? Never mind. Never mind, okay? I'm gonna eat my words here. I'm totally wrong, because that crab tank is what cracked it open for Enemy to break into the zone here. The Booyah Bomb is gonna come out and provide a little bit of coverage from Scuba, but not much. That's not going to take zone out of possession for Enemy. The cooler now coming out. Dat Kid once again on the crab tank, very quickly building special here and taking one out in the process. Dat Kid consistently has taken one out with them when they have built special. Now the lead being lost for Enemy. Zach, I'm wondering what Scuba has to do here to try to respond.
Yeah, Mecha needed a little bit more maybe than the one pick that they were able to get, as Dark able to lock it down with a heavy splatling. We talked about how strong this weapon is as it sticks by the zone. The Booyah Bomb not enough to take it back, and despite a slightly rocky start for Enemy, they really turn up the burner to 10, Milana, and they will take game 1 in a knockout on Mahi Mahi Resort.
Yeah, you know, that game was going in Scuba's favor for pretty much a good minute, right? They were able to kind of proc that terrain change and hold on to the zone long enough for that to be able to happen. But as soon as that terrain changed, enemy was like, okay, now we have turf to work with. So let's push in, let's get Dat Kid on that crab tank. And with an almost triple there, I think that was what really, like Saf said, cracked open the game for enemy to be able to kind of hold on to that zone for pretty much the rest of the match.
And Saf, a lot more reliance, I think, for Scuba on specials that the main purpose is going to be inking, as opposed to enemy that has the heavy splatling, which the main weapon does a ton of inking, but you have the wave breaker as the special. You've got the 52 gal, which has that killer whale 5.1. So you're putting a lot of the weight in terms of keeping not just the zone, but the area around it inked on both the main weapon of the heavy splatling, as well as that crab tank that we saw come out multiple times from Dat Kid.
Well, and Mecha was trying to keep up with the crab tanking, but Dat Kid was just doing it better. Like, I don't know how to say it other than that, because Dat Kid was just doing it tenfold, like they had been playing the weapon for years, which I find so interesting, especially because enemy, the composition and the team of enemy, because you have Zero coming into that team from Bet, and also, like you were saying, someone that is a veteran at this game. They've been playing this game at all different levels in all three variations. So you have somebody that is so experienced with so many different players coming into another team of very experienced players that are really familiar with how the format works. It's like, it's I've said it already a couple times, it's a recipe for disaster. So I'm really wondering here what the follow-up is going to be from Scuba against enemy, because this first one was just testing the waters. Like we were just trying to see what sticks here as we move forward in the match, coming in with the counter pick. What do we do to try to adjust here? Because as soon as enemy was able to take advantage of that opening from Dat Kid's crab tank, it was over. So what do you do to change it? What do you do to try to disrupt that momentum?
Yeah, Zero, or ZK as I think their name was on the screen there, one of the highest compete levels and just emotion levels and love for the game that I've seen out of one of the more veteran players. As we, Milana, go to a much more sensical mode for game 2 here. Tower control is up next. Our first time seeing it today. Let's go ahead into the rules for how tower control is played.
So for tower control, it is your job to stand on this tower that spawns in the center of the stage. As you stand on the tower will move towards checkpoints in which you have to continue to stand on it to break the checkpoints uncontested. As you continue to move past the checkpoints, if you can get the tower to the enemy base at that final checkpoint, you will be deemed the winner. If neither team makes it to that point, the team that makes it closest to that point will be considered the victor.
Now, Milana, this has one of the largest gaps between the #1 stage picked and the rest, but we are not seeing that not yet named stage being played in this instance. It's going to be Mako Mart coming out here for game 2. What are you expecting for TC Mako Mart here?
You know, I think it's really an interesting pick because we did talk a lot about how enemy really likes to play aggressively, right? And we know that they are fast and furious, and a stage as small as Mako Mart can definitely play to their advantage. So I think that in this case, Scuba is going to have to kind of be aware and be careful about how they let enemy gain their footing in this game, because once, and we saw it in the last game as well, once enemy gains their footing, it's going to be kind of a runaway, and it's going to be very difficult to stop.
Saf, to that point, we know Scuba likes to play aggressive. We know they like to get out in front early. The trouble is, how do they keep enemy from consistently making these deeper pushes into the later checkpoints that are going to ultimately give them a better recipe for success?
Well, okay, so if this is a moment where Dat Kid switches over to the brush, you have to have all eyes everywhere. And like literally everywhere. I'm talking walls, I'm talking in the sky, I'm talking, you do not want to let Dat Kid get anywhere close to you or close to that tower. However, that might not be as much of a worry here because Dat Kid is still opting to play with those dualies, which is just fine. The crab tank has been super beneficial for enemy, and maybe Scuba is a little bit less concerned with the mobility that enemy would have if Dat Kid were to switch over to that the paintbrush. However, that's not going to be the case here. Scuba going to be the ones to make a really strong opening, already trying to cascade onto this first checkpoint here. But there they are. Dat Kid with the crab tank. They're already taking out one. They're looking to take out another. They've assisted in two. I mean, Scuba really needs to try to recalibrate how to go against a crab tank like this.
And specifically, too, it's Dat Kid on Mecha Crime that we're consistently seeing crab on crab behavior as Scuba tries to get back into the action. Enemy with just Zero for a decent amount of range, and Zero was the one who went down first. So you can expect why Enemy didn't have the best opening, but once they got back into position here, you can see just how much of mid they've been able to take over. And Zero with that longest range weapon, the Forged Splattershot Pro here, Milana, looking to do some flanking and gets Mecha as a result.
Yeah, you know, if there's something that Zero is known for, it is really being up close and personal with their enemies. So, no pun intended, of course. So, you know, having Zero kind of go around this flank right here and keeping an eye on the members of Scuba so that they can't kind of exit this spawn area is going to be something key. The enemy is going to use the tactic cooler out here. A push to 45 is still pretty strong, but you know, we still have members of enemy kind of poking and kind of prodding at some of the members of Scuba here and making it a little bit miserable for that tower to even make it back to the middle of the stage right here.
Well, and poking is kind of the de facto choice. You can see Enemy push the tower to 45, relented a little bit after they got a couple of picks. Scuba did, backed off, and then waited for their team to come back, and now didn't even fully lose mid as a result. Now they're having a couple of picks taken away from them as Zero goes down. Mecha getting that crab tank built up and starting to reclaim some of the territory that they feel they so rightly deserve. Trying to break down the splash wall as well. That's going to be one of the better defenses, Sap, against that crab tank, as we see Scuba trying to extend their best push of the day to 88. That bomb on the tower is not going to help.
I'm just blown away with Mecha in this match right now because there was a moment earlier when Mel was speaking that Kara was posted up on the backside and Mecha jumped into them as a crab. Like, I didn't even see Mecha land on their 2 feet. All I saw was crab tank form in the jump, but they were fully jumping. And I'm just thinking to myself, like, how calculated do you have to be to know your exact landing moment to where crab tank can be packed? Also, every time I've seen Mecha on the stage, they have been in crab tank. They are just constantly trying to build crab tank to either be offensive or defensive. And I feel like the last push that we saw Scuba take really has Mecha to thank for it in the ground that they were able to maintain. Nobody has even stepped foot on that first checkpoint though, whereas Enemy is peaking at that second checkpoint.
It ain't much, but it's honest work as Mecha tries to farm up as many crab tanks as they possibly can. One down for each team. Now Enemy losing a second here. Scuba holding on to a couple of specials as they look to get that tower going here. But this is Enemy's strategy still, even with just 1 or 2 players alive. The staunch defense from afar, which is surprising, Milana, given the range that they don't really have, even once again forcing Mecha back, namely, I would think, to keep hold of that crab tank.
Yeah, you know, I think it's just it really speaks to what Enemy's strategy is, right? They are just not relenting with the pressure, and Scuba is buckling down to that pressure because, you know, as Scuba is in prime position right here, as Leafy enters Flow Aura state, they are in a good position to go forward, but, you know, they're still losing key members, and the rest of Scuba a little bit too far behind to make these picks from Leafy kind of utilize it in a productive way. And Enemy still in the center of the stage. They're just kind of all over Scuba, and Scuba is kind of scrambling a little bit. Right here with 3 down on Enemy, this is going to be their opportunity, Scuba's opportunity to kind of move forward. But with that Booyah Bomb, unfortunately, Crab Tank, if we're playing rock, paper, scissors, Booyah Bomb wins against Crab Tank every time. So, you know, then now we have basically a delayed wipe from Scuba and giving Enemy a chance to kind of move back forward to that center of the stage. And with only a little over 20 seconds left on the clock, they're going to have to make some big plays in order to even get to the tower.
Yeah, Enemy in the power position here. Dat Kid advancing far forward and getting Leafy down. That's been the main offensive aggressor here for Scuba. Grape also going to follow as Dat Kid entering that Flow Aura state with just about 5 seconds left to go. Zero with the Booyah Bomb to cement it. That'll ideally go right on top of the tower. No one from Scuba able to touch, and Saf, that is going to be the victory there for an Enemy team that looked even more emphatic in that game too, despite how quickly they flipped things on Mahi Mahi Resort.
You know, okay, Zach and Mel, something really interesting I'm just now noticing, which it's possible just in the fray of the excitement that I could have missed it, but Zach, why do you think that there was no blaster pick for this? On something like tower control, why in a situation like Mako Mart would you not want to pick blaster? I need that to be answered for me before I can continue on, because I'm like, wait a minute.
Well, thinking about where the blasters play, right? Oftentimes, they're not exactly sharking, but they're that threat that sits under where the chargers are likely going to play. So, for example, if you're going up against a player like Kara is staying on top of that pretty generous and beneficial sniper or charger overlook for most of the time. Only when they are in the driver's seat and you're able to get them on the tower would you then not be able to sit there. And both of these teams have had different strategies with, again, where exactly they want to play. Enemy, they've relied on Dat Kid with the Crab Tank, who's been their backline, essentially. All the rest of them are rushing forward. Outside of that, for Scuba, they've not really had many opportunities to even really get settled in mid, let alone advance forward and play under any of those sort of lips or overhangs where you might try to get down on that. So that's my thoughts, at least. And Milana, I guess I'll give it to you as well here to kind of answer why you think a blaster hasn't been brought.
Thank you so much for the shiny tips. I feel like I got a little extra something today. Yeah, so I'm learning so much. I'm learning so much too. So I think, Zach, I think in addition to what you were saying, right, we saw Leafy kind of pull out that Stamper in that first game, and it didn't really work so productively. They were able to kind of work something with it, but not so much to get the win from that game, right? And I find that a Stamper and a Blaster, it kind of play a similar role in that standing underneath that ledge and to be able to kind of grab whoever, some unsuspecting player who's like standing on the ledge, typically an anchor player, right? So I feel like if that didn't work in that first game, maybe in the second game, Leafy was like, maybe let's not do that again.
Well, Saf, hopefully that answers your question, and I will extend now a favor to you, which will be to read out the rules for the final mode that we have not yet seen today. It'll be Rainmaker for game number 3. Let's go ahead and take a look at how Rainmaker is to be played.
And Zach, you know how much I love rules, so thank you for the opportunity. Listen, the Rainmaker is the big golden fish in the center with a barrier around it. You have to break the barrier in order to access the Rainmaker and hold onto it. You must carry this Rainmaker to not one, but 2 different checkpoints. You cannot go to the final checkpoint or pedestal until you have completed the first one. If neither team reaches the goal, the team who comes the closest to the goal wins.
And Saf, I'll rely on your sort of expert analysis for this. We saw Scorch Gorge earlier, which is going to be the stage here for Rainmaker, on Clamblitz before. What are the sort of similarities and differences that we might be able to expect when we're looking at Scorch Gorge for Rainmaker versus something like Clamblitz?
So the one similarity I can already think of in my mind's eye is really where the basket location is in Clamblitz, because the first checkpoint is in the same location. So you have a wall and or a high point where somebody like a backline and or support player could take full advantage and take you out. The other side of it is just the ledge into no man's land. So you really don't have a lot of options for escape. You don't have a lot of options for defensive maneuvering. However, that first checkpoint over on the far right-hand side, depending on what way you're facing, is usually the most advantageous spot to take, especially because the one that is on the left-hand side, where you need to travel through the middle, it's too open. It's too open. You really are at risk for getting taken out before you can even get anything started. So a lot of the times you'll find advantage over to the right-hand side. But you never know. Sometimes things shift in your favor. Maybe you have 3 down and you're like, yeah, we could go either way. Let's just pick what we're comfortable with and see what happens.
Well, this is Scuba's stage counter pick here. So this is going to be, regardless of the outcome of this match, their last opportunity to pick the stage. If they do win, they would have that very interesting Game 4 mode decision that would also decide Game 5 between the final 2 that are remaining. But we have to get through this Game 3 first. Taking a look at the weapons that we've brought out here, some interesting swaps. Milana, I'm already seeing a Tri-Slosher Nouveau, which you know I love, coming out from Mecha. And on the opposite side of things, teams. Dark coming out with the 96 gal. That's going to have that ink back that could be so important for Rainmaker.
You know, I just think it's so funny because we've kind of come full circle that Enemy, like we mentioned, is an aggressive team, which is why they're running 4 different shooter type weapons, which can be very, very beneficial as far as building turf goes, but it can also have its weaknesses as well. But, you know, I say weaknesses, but Scuba already down 3-0, picking up that Rainmaker. They're going to break this not first checkpoint. Sorry, I got like, whoa, that was like whiplash right there. They did not break the first checkpoint. They went down before they hit that checkpoint. But with all of these, you know, sub weapons coming out, we saw, and specials coming out as well, that is an immediate stop from Enemy's push. And now Scuba does have control of that Rainmaker. Kara holding on to that Rainmaker and kind of playing a little bit cautiously around this curve right here, hoping to get this checkpoint, but with an ink vac coming out from the other side from Enemy, this is going to be a little bit more delayed than they had hopefully.
Yeah, I kind of wondered if Kara was just going to bum
Yeah.
rush that first checkpoint. It looked like they were going just solo here, as they will eventually go down Saf right in front of the cushion and just behind the Rainmaker pedestal. But a pretty impressive turnaround. I think we all kind of thought that was going to be Enemy getting that first checkpoint pretty easily. Now getting a few down from Scuba, although they are still jumping in. Enemy with another chance to either do so or let that Rainmaker reset back to mid.
Yeah, and we haven't even had the chance to really get reset yet because you have everyone in the kitchen sink arriving from Scuba onto where the Rainmaker is right now. Enemy can't even step foot back down into the center stage. Finally, maybe with the Rainmaker resetting, this is where we can maybe turn some things around here. Enemy now having a cooler on their side, so a really big boost coming out for those folks, but they have to push back here because look at this. Scuba, you have Mecha taking up the center stage. You have 2 different folks jumping in for support. Datkid has to support from far away with that crab tank, and which allows a little bit of space for Dark to work with, a little bit of on the side too for Datkid to push forward as well. Multiple members of Scuba going down, but it's just, even with the staggering of this, both teams are really quick to respond to that.
You know, and I think the swap from Mecha has really worked out here. Not only are they playing a different role, trying to get that tacticaler up just as often as they got the crab tank, but their survivability in kind of forcing them as they have to back off a little bit here. Enemies' pressure getting too intense for them to handle, but being in this tight hallway makes it a little bit easier for them on a weapon that has the triple spread to try and get anybody that might be flanking around. Zero having to back off, the Rainmaker will fall regardless. So yet again, we see some pretty staunch defense coming out from Scuba, but it's been Milana just so back and forth as Enemy goes 3 down, Scuba goes 2 down, and it feels like we're once again in that holding pattern.
You know, this is kind of bringing back that kind of the game in which most of the game is played in a neutral state, but with Grape going into that float war state and getting yet another pick. This is going to be Scuba's opportunity here. They're going to need to push up, but they're going to need to push up with the Rainmaker and with the rest of their teams. They do have that tri-strike online, and they're waiting to be able to use it. They're going to hopefully use it here to be able to push forward, but again, Inkvac coming out from Enemy. Leafy getting a little bit of support or providing support for their teammates, but with 3 down on the side of Enemy, this is going to be Scuba's ability to knock into that first checkpoint, and they're going to try, hopefully, to push that Rainmaker, but I think a little bit of a jumping hazard here happens, so they, I don't think, are going to be able to make it much farther than this.
It's just trades back and forth, and Datkid helping with one of the easier wipeouts you'll see as multiple members of Scuba jumping in one after the other to awaiting Datkid. They may not be in the brush, but they are still lethal with the splat dualies that we've seen here today as Enemy looks to push forward. They're going to be backed up by both the tactical buff and the ink back, but the ink back will fall. Backed off as well is Datkid, and Scuba once again holding strong. They've got a 2-point lead, Saf. It's not exactly the safest, but regardless, they will continue to push forward and keep Enemy on the back foot.
And I think with Mecha being the one holding on to the Rainmaker, well, as I say it, Mecha goes down. But I felt like Mecha in that moment was the right person to be holding on to that. especially trying to take a little bit more space in the back to allow their teammates to come forward and kind of assess what fight was happening in the foreground. But now with Dark having the Rainmaker in their hands here, Kara is trying their best to defend with a lot of success, actually defending that first checkpoint. Still no first checkpoint down coming out from the folks of Enemy just yet, but they are just barely scratching the surface of it. Only 1 point keeping them out of the way with overtime as well. Obviously, the vacuum is really going to help us out with that one. Can the vacuum stay alive for just a little bit longer to get just a few more points? And in the fray of the triple splashdown, that is going to be Enemy taking the lead by just a narrow margin. What do you even do when Tri-Stars come down? I mean, that was a crapshoot. That was just luck.
Talk about taking your time, but having the patience pay off as Enemy in overtime able to somehow get the point that they needed. All they really needed to do was trip over their own shoes and fall off that first checkpoint, and they would have gotten the lead. And Milana, they ended up doing it despite Scuba locking them down so many pushes back to back to back in one of the more stalematey Rainmaker matches I feel like I've ever seen.
I think, you could see the decision making coming out from Scuba. They're like, okay, do we let them dunk it into the checkpoint and try to, prevent them from picking it up again? Or do we, splat them now? Do we contest with them to be able to pop the Rainmaker and then grab the Rainmaker ourselves and give ourselves a little bit more time? So Rainmaker is a lot of on-the-fly decision-making, and we saw that Scuba opted for the former, right? So I think what was really tricky, because the reason that they did that is because, Enemy was running 4 shooters. You can very rarely out-turf 4 shooters. But, and then they're like, okay, well, let me use my specials to prevent them from picking up the Rainmaker. And then they're like, but all they needed was to really just touch it and, like you said, trip over their shoelaces and, fall, face plant a little bit. And then that's what it was. So it's really, you're stuck between a rock and a hard place in that case if you're Scuba.
You don't ask how, you just ask how many games you've won in the match, and it was enough for Enemy. As we take a look at our bracket here after that winner's semifinal bout, NME 3-0 victory over Scuba. 37 Handsome Boys and Healbook is still going on. We will, of course, await the winner of that one, but Enemy awaiting them in the winner's finals position. Down in the loser's top 8, we have a result as well. Content Cat with a 3-1 victory over Endrol. They will move on to winner's quarters, but they will not play Scuba, who will be on the opposite side of loser's quarters, currently awaiting the winner of LFN and Duck Motif, which, Saf, LFN up 2-1 over Duck Motif. It is possible that we could see our 2 seed Duck Motif go 0-2 drop coming out of the latter portion of this event.
And like Mel hinted at earlier, that's got to be so hard if you're Duck Motif to get knocked down into losers that early on into top 8. Because you already know, yeah, we're seeded number 2, but then you get knocked down in there, and you're like, okay, well, who's waiting for us there? Of course, it's LFN. And watching LFN and Duck Motif, in my mind, I'm like, dude, is it 2003? Or, sorry, is it 2023? I feel like this is a matchup that I would have seen 3 years ago. But that just goes to show how long the longevity of this game has meant to so many of these players, that they have played in so many different things and then they will come out for the North American League. But this is quite literally a match that you would have seen 3 years ago between these two exact teams. So I find that so funny, and it warms my heart to see that over the longevity of the entire franchise, that you get to still see teams that will come back to the forefront and will still play each other in situations like this. But I really feel for Duck Motif in this situation, because I bet that they had a really good feeling that LFN was not going to really be too big of a competition here in top 8, just considering how the seeding played out. But to Mel's point, sometimes it doesn't matter. Sometimes you just see something happen in the bracket and you're like, okay, what even went on there? How do we even break that down? But sometimes there's no explanation. Sometimes people just show up way more prepared on a given day, and that's how it can go. And maybe LFN just has the keys for success in this one.
Personally, I'd love to see a Splatoon game that came out in 2003. Something I could play on a Game Boy or like early DS, That'd be a ton of fun. But
catch me on my SP.
Oh, yeah, I love my SP and I love my DSs as well. But we'll take a quick break here. We're going to go over to Falco, Pico, and Power as they play a quick game of Find the Spot. Let's go ahead and throw it over to them.
Hello, everybody. My name is Falco. I am joined here with Pico and Power, and we're going to be playing a game to see how well these two spectator camera operators know how to get to certain positions in stages in Splatoon 3. All right, let's take a look at the first image. If you guys want to queue up, we'll start in 3, 2, 1, go. All right, so you both are talking to Marigold here. Looks like Pico queued in first.
Where is it? Where is it?
Choosing
I might know where this is, Power.
Come on, come on.
I'm going.
We'll see going right towards the center of the stage.
Jump in, jump in. Why am I this weapon?
And yes, that is it. We have the Humpback Pump Track Central logo as our first image. All right, let's take a look at our second image here. All right, we'll count you down. 3, 2, 1, go.
Oh, yeah.
All right, you both seem pretty confident so far. Both clicking the same stage at the same time, loading in at the same time too.
Listen, I gotta have on my running shoes, all right, Falco?
Yeah, you have all of your swim speed up and run speed up, both
Absolutely.
of you? Is that how it's going to happen?
There. Go there. Take the rail. Yeah.
Ooh, both taking different routes too. Okay,
Wait,
Pika going around the left side.
Where is
Power going around. Oh, and look at that. Pico able to get to the center first. Power, you went around to the right side, a little bit of a slower route. Pico taking a more direct route. Congratulations, that's 2 points total for Pico. All right, here's the next image. 3, 2, 1, go. All right.
I know where this is. I know where it is. I know where it is. I know where it is.
You both
I know
are
where it
pretty
is.
confident.
Go.
Ooh, okay, loading times. Pico slightly ahead, maybe half a second ahead of Power.
I don't know. I know where it is. Wait, actually, I don't know where it is.
I know where it is.
Wait.
All right.
It's on this stage.
Power seems more confident.
Wait, but there's two of them, though. Hold on.
There's only one. I see one.
What do you mean?
Just use your eyes, Pico. Wait.
Your
Wait.
guys are almost there.
What? Wait a minute.
Up. Going up. Where'd you go?
Not
It's definitely. Hold on. It's definitely this.
well. You guys do have the right stage. We'll give you that. But the exact location of your Inklings and Octolings, not quite there yet.
Power, there's no way you see this.
Oh.
Center
All right, there we go.
Yeah.
Power's got it. The
What?
pole at the bottom in the frame. Yeah,
The pole?
that was tricky. All right, we'll take a look at our next image here. 3, 2, 1, go.
Come on, Pico.
Andy, I know where this is, man.
I know where this is, too.
Oh, no.
Yes.
Oh, they both chose the same stage here. Okay. It looks like Pico's going to be queuing in first.
Load.
I'm going.
See.
I'm going.
Waiting.
Run speed, go.
Come on. Oh, my weapon is too slow.
Hey, the perks of being a ballpoint main, all right? Let me
All
tell
right,
you.
both are
I
taking
got it.
different routes too. And I think Pico got it. Power, where's that electrical box? Where is it?
It's somewhere here.
It is somewhere there. I know Pico found it.
Man.
Unfortunately, not in the same recon room, so... Yep, do you see it now?
Ah.
There you go,
Yep,
yeah.
yep.
Hello there.
All right, let's queue up our next image. 3, 2, 1, and go.
Come on, Power, you know where this is.
Yeah, come on. We all know where this is.
We all know where this is. All reliable, dude.
All reliable,
All
both
reliable.
of you queuing into Hagglefish Market. It's going to be Power who's, I think, going to be queuing in slightly first, so we'll see.
I mean, Power,
No,
this
it's
is yours
where.
to win because I don't know where it is. I know it's somewhere in the stage. I'm running. I think I got it.
Where is it? Come on.
Okay, so you guys are close. Well,
Wait,
Pico,
no.
you're close here. But the image is not quite lining up to what you really where you need to have your Inkling. However, there's some adjustments that you need to do to get your Inkling closer. And that might require a special usage of some of your some of your abilities here.
Special
What?
usage? Oh no, dude. Wait, I have inkjet.
Impossible.
Wait, Power, what
What?
special do you have? Hold on.
All right. Pico's looking pretty confident with what he has. Just, you know,
Dude,
Okay, hold on.
spreading,
Hold on.
spreading ink everywhere.
where is it? I don't even know where it is. You know what? Forget it.
Wait, are we sure this is it? Hold on a minute. There's no other green, blue, orange. Yeah, that's. Oh.
Get in the map.
Oh, I'm in the wrong spot. Oh no.
All right, we'll see.
Oh.
Pico's turning around here to see where he wants to go.
Pate, come on, ballpoint. You got it. Okay.
Now Power going with a splashdown.
See how high I can go.
Okay, let's see.
Is it?
All right, Power, with that splashdown, you got it. Yes, you got some extra height to match the image. Congratulations.
Oh yeah, we are so back, Pico. Watch out, man.
You know, job well done, because I could not figure that out for the life of me.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to our next image. 3, 2, 1, and go.
All right, this is super easy.
I don't know how to get
Come
there.
on, Pico.
Oh,
I know
well,
where it is.
Pico loaded in first, but is less confident. Power says, I know exactly where this is.
All right, take it back. I know where it is.
I'm
Or
not
wait.
going. No. Yes.
Take the long route. Take the long route,
No.
please.
Short route.
Ooh, so close, but that is going to be Pico
What?
who arrived first. Yes.
How? We
So-
have to check the replay, man. There's no way.
I
check
have
the
on my
instant
running
replay
shoes,
later.
all right?
All right, let's take a look at the next one. 3, 2, 1, and go. See where you guys choose to go here. This time it's going to be Power who's first to load. Pico's taking his time looking. Isn't quite sure where they want to go just yet.
No. This can't be it. No.
Okay, I'm going to back out. Okay,
I might not be right either.
I'm lost. It's going home.
all right. Well, we can give you guys hints if you'd like. I think we're at that time. One of you has entered the correct stage throughout your durations here.
Okay. Oh, wait.
Oh.
Wait for me.
I'm
on my way.
Hold on.
there, I'm getting there, I'm getting there.
Hold on. I got it.
There you go. Yep,
No.
we'll give you that one, Pico. Yes. The glass pane hanging by the wires. You're right. Good job. That one was hard. Let's move on to our last image. 3, 2, 1, go.
Come on, Andy. You know this one.
We
You
all
know this.
one. Wait. Oh, no.
Come on,
Pico
Andy.
queuing in record time. Going to Scorched Gorge. It helps that that's the first stage you can select. Power's backing out. Looks like they're going to be changing their weapon and which special to
Where is it?
get
Where is it?
to where that is.
Hold on. That's not it. Is that it?
All right, well, Power's queued back in with a different weapon. They're going with the Zipcaster.
We are bringing it home.
Power seat looking pretty confident here.
I believe in my ballpoint. Don't worry.
At least someone does.
Yeah, as long as one person believes, that's all that matters, all right?
Zipped and in, Power, good job. You made it your way to the Scorch Gorge cage. Congratulations, that is a
Yeah.
point for you.
Oh,
yeah.
that's how you did it. You went to use Zipcaster, huh?
Yeah, I did, man.
Smart.
Nice
Come
job,
on,
that's another
can't
point
get
for
there.
you. All right, after telling the scores, it is going to be Pico with 5, Power with 3. Thank you both for playing. If you guys played along at home, let us know how you did.
Always fun to see Falco and, of course, our wonderful Spec Cam crew, of which our third to round them out, Czar, is on for today. So once again, we got to give Czar another shout out as well. We come back and we should have a bracket update for you as well, because we did see the end or change to that final losers top 8 battle. And Saf, I want to throw it over to you for this one. LFN defeating Duck Motif 3-2. So Scuba will take on LFN, but Duck Motif coming out of the latter portion in the second seed. They go 0-2 drop in our top 8.
And I think LFN moving forward in this is really surprising for me. I was just thinking about like my heart really goes out to Duck Motif in this one for getting knocked out so early. But I'm like blown away actually with what's happening down in losers quarterfinals. 37 Handsome Boys, Content Cat, Scuba, and LFN. There is quite a battle to be had down in those 4 spots in losers quarterfinals. But Zach, I'm chomping at the bit right now for what I'm seeing in winners finals.
Well, it will be the continuation of our number 1 seed from the ladder portion, NME, taking on Heelbook, coming out of ladder as the number 3 seed. Milana, our first time getting to spectate this roster of JJ, Prosper, Len, and Adapt. Some very interesting strategies, including JJ often running either that Tenta or Sorella Brella.
Yeah, I think, that's what makes, personally, I'm with Saf. Heelbook is just such a fun team to be able to spectate because of the comps that they bring are just a little bit off kilter, right? They're not something that you might see normally as we might see, the average Snipe Rider player or like something like a shooter. But having a Brella on that team, and especially a high-level Brella player like JJ, I think is always such a pleasure to watch. So I'm also, like Saf, very excited.
And Saf, keep in mind for Heelbook, this, I believe, is only their 3rd event of the regular season. So in addition to this week, they would likely need to play week 7 and or 8 in order to maximize their event score. However, no worse than 4th so far in top 8s in previous weeks. 4th in week 3 and 3rd in week 4, kind of swapping those numbers around. And you mentioned that Heelbook is just this amazing conglomerate of players that can consistently compete.
Dude, when I think of the word powerhouse, oh my gosh, I think of the team Heelbook, because not only do you have the breadth of experience spanning across all these players, but you have folks that are so dedicated to the game and dedicated to playing what feels right to them. And so how like a lot of people will follow players and like follow their journey. Adapt of Heelbook is that player for me. I have been following Adapt's journey since they were in mid-level, and I have been following them through all of the different variations of teams that they have played on. And seeing them play with these folks on Heelbook today in the North American League, just it warms my heart so much, because I have known this player since like 2020. I've known them for so long and watched them climb the ranks and move their way through the top level scene. And now seeing them here, it's one of those things where you're like, wow, like look how far you have come to get to this point. And also to Mel's point, talking about JJ, it's not even just like a Brella on your team, it's JJ. It just verbatim, it's just having JJ in your roster, because they are nasty, and in the best way possible. They are a nasty Brella player. Their Inkjet has been one of the craziest specials I've ever gotten to witness in the times of Free Flow, when Free Flow was really at their peak a couple years ago, and even last year when they were really doing a lot of work. So the fact that you have this roster coming together in Heelbook and making their way through the North American League, having three different events under their belt, probably having to play the rest of them, I'm excited. I'm sat. I'm like, this is not even going to be a problem for you, because mind you, Heelbook has not dropped a game today in the ladder portion. They did not drop a game in ladder today. So when you're like, yeah, they have to play in the next couple events, in my mind, I'm like, again, light work, no problem. If anyone can do that again and again, it's going to be Heelbook.
Well, I don't know if Adapt is up for coaching. I certainly need some on that Tri-Slosh Nouveau and Ashen that they like to play. But Milana, we do have the stage and mode in. We're 3 for 3 on starting with Splat Zones, and we are going to the most popular so far of the stages for Splat Zones, that being Urchin Underpass, to kick us off here.
I think it's so interesting that Urchin Underpass has somehow made its way from a turf war map into a Splat Zones map as far as popularity goes, right? So I think it's really interesting that these teams opted to kind of come to Urchin Underpass for this next game, because I think what we have to consider is that, like we mentioned all the time, Urchin Underpass is a huge stage, but really most of the action is kind of contained in the center of the stage. And what makes this Splat Zones stage kind of unique is that that there is a trench where the splat zone is, which means that you are kind of a sitting duck as long as you are sitting in the splat zone. So, you know, these teams are going to have to worry about what is going on around this trench to be able to utilize it to their benefit.
Well, it's game one of Winners Finals here. Shout out to Czar, as always, on our spec cam, but it's going to be a first start, splat zones on Urchin Underpass. And Milana, let's take a look at the compositions here. I am seeing a heavy splatling on both sides, and at least one team bringing out a blaster this time.
Yeah, and then, you know, Len, I believe, was the blaster player, is just an incredible blaster player. So I think in that case, it is going to be beneficial because, like Saf mentioned, the players on Healbook bring what they know, and what they know is what they're good at. And as you can see, Len getting a quick splat on a member of enemy here, and getting a quick lead with that splat zone as well.
Lots of strategies can work well here. Teams either like to play on this sort of ramp ahead of the zone as we see enemy go 3 down, or just play to the sides of and just in front of the zone as JJ fighting off multiple 1v1s here as enemy kind of cycling their players in and out of each other. Dark even advancing out of that alleyway, jumping over the waves of that wave breaker on this heavy splatling, buffed up by the tactical staff as enemy looks for a way in.
Looking for a way in, but not finding a whole lot of success, Zach, because even with zone being taken out of possession a couple times in a neutral state, Healbook is still here to stay. Finally, enemy putting all of the pieces in place here to try to get some points on the board. Adapt, though, quick to pop that cooler. They're going to try to support their teammates as best they can, but what is one to do when you have DatKid knocking on the front door and taking out the onslaught coming from Healbook? Because now you have to start from the beginning while enemy is already 3/4 of the way through.
And we know how much enemy likes to be on the offensive side, playing so difficult with that high mobility and positioning as JJ looking for somebody with the inkjet, not quite able to find any picks in the latter stages. That's going to be one marked going down. The 52 not able to provide any support for a little while as the lead going to go over to enemy. Len on that blaster, not going to be the best choice for inking that splat zone, but trying to make sure they can have some staying power here. Milana, enemy looking to push forward, but facing some resistance as Healbook takes that zone right back.
And with that zone control right there, that does put a hefty penalty on enemy's score right here. They're going to need to make their way through that penalty, but their position is good. They are keeping the rest of the members of Healbook away from that zone, and you know, penalties can go pretty quick if you can keep the enemies away from that zone in the center of the stage. Prosper with that wave breaker coming out right here, hoping to provide a little bit of support. Tactical coming out as well. Healbook is going to have to make some moves happen here, but DatKid on that Zipcaster is going to prove to be a little bit detrimental, taking out Prosper along the way, and enemies still in control of the zone. They are, you know, Healbook is going to have to push maybe one last opportunity here to be able to kind of hold on to that zone.
Zero dodging around, getting the trade on the Dapple Dualies as Prosper looks for another pick. The teams are going to trade out wave breakers as well as Healbook goes 3 down. Prosper, though, doing a great job of staying alive, Saf. We saw DatKid on the Splat Dualies the majority of the time, now swapping over to what we more so know them on with that Octobrush, and both teams kind of trading out positioning here in mid, neither one getting too deep into the other's court area.
You can tell that Healbook is really trying to risk assess here by seeing what is going to be the most optimal solution. Opening the way, though, is going to be JJ on that Inkjet. It's not going to find much headway, though. Enemy is still being very present in the center stage here, but really big opportunity for Healbook, having Zero and DatKid both getting taken out in the process. JJ is going to push 3Z into the corner with a little bit of help from Adapt on the back end there, but DatKid coming in with the Zipcaster that is going to disrupt a little bit of what Healbook is trying to do here. Re-establishing the penalty, no less, though, is going to be Adapt, taking up that center stage and still doing their best to eliminate the penalty. It worries me, though, Zach, because enemy is having such a significant lead here, even with penalty in the way. They've done a really good job to try to disrupt what Healbook is trying to do.
Well, and in watching JJ, even if they're not getting picks on the Inkjet, it does feel like it's a good enough zoning special that they're getting the job and buying the time that they would need to allowing Prosper to set up on the slip as Dat Kid is going to zoom around with the Zip Caster, but they're locked out, it looks like, by JJ as we enter the final 30 seconds here. And Adapt is another player that I want to call out because they can play this Tri-Slosh Nouveau multiple ways. They've mostly played it more so passively this time around, but they, Milana, have also been able to defend the zone when enemy has gotten too close.
Yeah, and then, you know, they're going to have to play a strong defense here because with only about 10 seconds left on the clock, Heelbook is going to have to maintain control of the zone all through the overtime counter in order for them to get the win here. So right here, right now, they are in control of the zone, and they, like I said, have to maintain control of the zone the entire time until their points tick down to 11. But enemy is not going to make it easy, and as a member, I believe, of Heelbook gets splatted on that zone, that is going to do the job for enemy, giving them the win.
Maybe the nature, Saf, of the size of this zone is it did not take much. The Zipcaster contributing a lot more on this stage compared to others than it would have with that final splat, and also just the ink that they're able to put in that little corner, just giving them enough to take it back over. But some showing of brilliance from a Heelbook team that got knocked down several times and kept getting back up, proving to be a solid enemy for NME.
I think too, what's interesting is that Heelbook felt that they, like, more specifically, I think JJ plus or minus somebody else really felt like that they had to push 3Z quite a bit. 3Z was constantly like taking in that like corner right next to the zone, and they would throw out a wall, and to me that was like a calling card. Instantly you would see JJ respond to that, or you would see Adapt respond to that. And so I'm just wondering if, like, was that enough of a distraction to pull away from the objective, to try to pull people into that corner, but also pulling people into a fight that they have to have now if you're going to be that close. So I'm wondering, for Heelbook moving forward here, now that enemy has the wind in their sails, I'm wondering what Heelbook wants to try to adjust into this counter pick.
Well, Milana, the mode has already come through. It will be tower control coming out for game number 2. And looking at some of the players on enemy and what's part of made them successful, you know, we already had Saf talk about 3Z. We've talked about Dat Kid to a degree in their swap in game 1 from the Splat Dualies over to the Octobrush. But you look at a player like Zero that we talked about and hyped up kind of the longevity that they've been in the scene, especially competitively. And the Dapple Dualies, what they played on Urshin, having to be kind of this flex player. You think about maybe like an Ice from Milky Way that can play the Forge Splattershot Pro, or go over to something that is shorter range or longer range. And as we get the stage here being Crab Leg Capital, it could be something that they stick on. We have seen Beacons be favored to a degree on Crab Leg Capital, but it's interesting to see whether they feel like the range would be better for their team, or whether they feel like the stick around ability for their team to come right back into the fight is going to be more important.
Yeah, you know, I really want to kind of hone in on Zero's role, because historically we've seen Zero play a lot, and Zero is definitely a Slayer type you know, player, and we know that he plays aggressively, he gets the picks, he gets the job done, he makes the pushes happen. But what is really interesting about how his role in enemy is that even though he is a Slayer type, he's still bringing the Tacticooler, which is typically not such a Slayer move, more a support player move, right? Right. So seeing him bring out these Dapple Dualies, or maybe even the NZAP 85, and utilizing the Tacticooler, he has to kind of be a little bit more measured in the way that he plays, right? Because he has to worry about building special. He can't just, you know, jump in, get the 2 picks, and get splatted and return back to spawn, because he has to be cognizant about at what point can I throw out this Tacticooler for my teammates as well. So I think really considering that, I'm not really sure what direction he's going to go with this as far as Crab Leg Capital goes, but I think it is something interesting to keep an eye out for, to see what kind of things he might bring to the forefront as this like weird flex role.
Well, we're looking at any sort of counterplay coming out from Heelbook, as they're down 0-1 game-wise in this match in Winners Finals. Taking a look at their composition now, it's going to be the Snipe Rider 5B being selected here to give them an element of range. Zero indeed going back over to that Forge Splattershot Pro here, Saf, and the Blaster sticking around, giving them that ever-needed offensive edge for tower control.
You know, I get the choice with the 5B. The B pencils tend to have a thicker lead type and also a darker lead type. So I kind of understand. I understand the choice here with maybe trying to lay down the firepower a little bit more with the 5B. But regardless, I digress. An enemy first to try to make headway into the checkpoint here, and actually to Mel's point, so I'm really wondering about Zero being more on the supportive end, and I'm wondering about that against somebody like Healbook, where you have JJ and Adapt being also really aggressive players, and wondering like why you wouldn't want to have more aggression versus aggression. But you know what? There's a method to the madness here that obviously I don't understand as somebody that is not a player on these teams, and it honestly maybe for Enemy it doesn't actually matter as much because we're already sailing our way to checkpoint number 2.
Yeah, better run for your life if you're Zero. Trying to play maybe that range game against a player like JJ, who you do not want to get too close to with that canopy, and using that weapon up front, getting the pick there as Dat Kid will go down. NME continues to track forward here. We did see Dat Kid swap over to the Splat Dualies again. The Crab Tank, nice to have on top of the towers. Enemy with a very solid start. They will go 3 down, but a push to 22 here, Milana. Great opening, and one that Healbook is going to have a bear of a time coming back from.
Yeah, so something about Crab Leg Capital is that as they push that past that second checkpoint, it really is kind of a runaway. So getting to that point, even getting past that first checkpoint, is going to be an uphill battle for Healbook, especially since that first checkpoint is located right next to the drop of the enemy spawn. So they're going to have to be aware of Dat Kid's Crab Tank. Dat Kid opting to go with the Splat Dualies for this game, probably for exactly this reason, so that they can set up this Crab Tank right here, perhaps on the grates, perhaps on the tower, and be able to kind of provide a lot of supporting fire for their team.
And Healbook using the blaster early, or the actual big bubbler early from that blaster, and as soon as it goes down, it's going to be so difficult for them to have that staying power that they want. So they will go 3 down shortly after, an enemy will pick up right where they left off. No first or second checkpoint for them to get through, as we see Zero getting taken down point blank range. Dark falling as well. A great usage staff of the Inkjet. We mentioned how rare it is to see that special, but it's doing work here on Crab Leg Capital.
Rare as a special, but my goodness, not for JJ. Not for JJ whatsoever. Unfortunate though, Healbook had a really great opening there to try to topple that first checkpoint, but unfortunately right in front of harm's way, as when you take down all of the folks of Enemy, chances are they are going to be right there to respond, since that point on check is right in front of the spawning area. So Enemy is going to shut that down really quick. There's still a little bit of firepower coming out from Healbook though. The tower is mostly staying on the side of Enemy. Healbook able to push it through just a little bit more, but now kind of having to start from scratch here, and actually it's some scratch and then some, because now the tower sailing towards the third checkpoint here for Enemy, but nobody on Enemy is really, I guess, being a little bit forceful in this situation here, and I think that's just because Healbook still having a really solid foothold on mid.
Yeah, Healbook trying to scratch and claw their way to a lead. You saw Adapt thinking about taking a fight there and then backing off to retain what part of their tactical they built up. They have the Inkstone as well as a double splat there from Len. That is exactly why you sit right below that drop down. Gets the third there onto 3Z, trying to hide behind that obstacle. Milana looks for the fourth onto Dat Kid, but regardless, that's going to buy a ton of time for Healbook.
And they are sailing their way to that second checkpoint. The second checkpoint, I would argue, is the safest checkpoint on this stage, but they are going to need to not just make it to the second checkpoint, but make it past that second checkpoint. So they're going to need to have somebody standing on that tower. JJ with the big bubbler and the tacticooler as a support is going to be here. I feel like this is deja vu. I've seen a clip here of JJ on this tower exactly at this moment. They do get the lead. They are continuing their push. They have to make it through that third checkpoint, and they are so close to the end. But you know, sometimes it's okay not to make it and not to knock it out of the park. They just need to hold on to that lead.
I think teams know now they don't want to face JJ right on top of those grates when they're on the tower. A big lead for Healbook. Said it was going to be a bear of a push. Turns out it was a little teddy bear that they had to deal with, getting right to a 6-point win here if they can hold on to it for another 10 seconds as Dat Kid using the Crab Tank early in a bid to buy some overtime. JJ using that canopy to protect themselves and somehow stays alive for a little bit longer, but finally goes down as 3 members going to top the tower for Enemy here in overtime. Len going to get traded it out with the 52 as Prospero looks to take one down from afar. Zero trying to stay alive with the Booyah Bomb. Gets the suction bomb down as well as multiple members of enemy jumping in. They've lost 2. It's a 3v2 for Healbook. Just the 52 left. That's a wipeout. And JJ, who else, cementing it for Healbook. That's a big win on Crablink Capital here, Saf, to tie the match at 1.
I feel okay. So sometimes you have plan A and plan B, and that is what works for you. Enemy was on plan Q because at that point you have everybody from Healbook trying the craziest tactics in order to take tower out of your possession. Adapt was all the way behind 3 different people, and you could see that Healbook took the opportunity to make multiple trades. And at that moment, yes, when you have the lead, yeah, trading, that is okay to do. So you had Healbook taking multiple trades in that moment. And then, of course, the crescendo of it all ending with JJ topping the tower right at the end there. I mean, textbook for Healbook.
Not to be confused, Plan Q with .Q from Milky Way, another common team here in the Splatoon 3 North American League. But Milana, we've given JJ some props. Let's go back for a second to Len and the time they built up for Healbook with that double leading into that third splat, getting them into that flow aura state, and also getting Healbook well past the halfway mark.
I think that really shook up enemy to have 3 going down while the tower is at that first checkpoint stage. And then, you know, we talk a lot about things kind of aligning, having the stars align properly with Splatoon games. And especially something like tower control, you can make your pushes happen. But if the tower is not with you, there's no purpose in doing that, right? We have to make sure that we're moving the objective at the same time as we're making these pushes happen and the picks that we need, because we have to get the picks at the right time, and we have to get the right picks as well. So having Len move forward and getting the picks that he did, entering that flow aura state, kind of shook enemy, and having that tower at the same time be able to move past that first checkpoint pretty simultaneously, I think was just such good timing for Healbook, and it, you know, really kind of built that momentum for them to be able to move even past that second checkpoint, even past the third one.
Well, Saf, one might think we'd be going to Rainmaker next as kind of that formulaic 3-piece there, but we're going to Turf War instead. So
I knew it.
Healbook with the mode selection chooses Turf War. Talk about why you think that might be a strength despite their loss on Splat Zones in Game 1.
I just think they're trying to shut it out quick. And I feel like Turf War is a good way to do that. You have less time to really try to make a statement. You don't really have to go through all of the trials and tribulations of the other game modes. It's a very simple objective. So I feel like if you want to do the quick and dirty, this is a good choice for Healbook.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and we still are awaiting the stage pick. Crablike Capital, which is the most commonly played for Turf War, has already been done. So Mako Martin Hagglefish, you would think, would be the next common selections, but Milana, it's going to be Inkblot Art Academy. That was the stage I did not want to mention earlier because of how frequently we see it for tower control. With tower control out of the way for this match, I feel like it's finally safe to utter its name.
You know, I think it's such an interesting pick for Turf War. I don't think it's maybe the most common Turf War pick for teams. It's a little bit uncommon, but definitely something that teams are good with because they play it all the time on the other modes, so why not Turf War, right?
Saf, is the secret to success here shrinking the size of the stage? Lots of alliteration there. Wow. As we go from Urchin Underpass in Game 1, which is this gigantic stage, but yes, there is just this little area of the zone that you want to focus on, to an Inkblot Art Academy stage that's not that large overall and can be kind of cumbersome to get to the higher elevated parts of.
You know, funny enough, I'm kind of thinking of, it's so silly, actually. I'm thinking of maybe trick shots here because there's a lot of different walls and things you can utilize for your success. And I feel like a team like Healbook likes to have that sort of flair in their aggression. And so I'm feeling like this is the right choice to have. But Zach, a reflux apiece on both sides. So definitely wasting no time in trying to paint the spawn. Really, but if you're Len, if you're Len, you're wasting no time to enter the fight, but there's nobody there to meet Len.
Too speedy for their own good. Speaking of trick shots, we'll have to see if Dark or Prosper is going to be cranking any 90s here, as they've both opted for the Snipe Rider 5H this time. Zero getting back onto the crab tank here, wants to make sure they have the height advantage to do so. Prosper jumping out, knowing the writing is on the wall here. Milana Adapt's going to follow suit, and for now, Enemy will block things down, but we know that the later portions of the Turf War matches are typically the most important.
I think it's really interesting that Dad Kid opted to be the reflex player on Enemy because, you know, like Saf mentioned, there are a lot of walls that you can do some trick shots with. And if I'm thinking trick shots, I'm thinking Ink Brush, I'm thinking Zip Caster,
Agreed.
right? So I think it's really interesting that now we kind of have to hold that kid back a little bit from their showy potential to be able to kind of paint the spawn and to be able to kind of have that measured push along with their teammates. But like we said, it's really hard to determine what the outcome of a Turf War game is going to result in only halfway through this set. And it seems like most of these fights that are taking place between the two are kind of not really opting for too much. But Enemy putting Healbook in danger. Still, again, a minute and 20 left on the clock. It still could be anybody's game. They're just going to have to play it more carefully.
Yeah, Len barely able to get to that tactical. It was put in a position that despite it being blocked off by that wall, Enemy had pretty good foresight over because they had the crab tank online and because 3Z was sitting around there and still is trying to set up with the splash wall. So that's going to be even more difficult to get around. That kid further pushing Prosper back, and both of these Snipe Riders have basically lived on top of these overhangs as that kid looks for a pick there onto JJ. It'll end up being a trade between the Reflex players that Saf, you mentioned at the start of this one.
Yeah, and actually a super crucial trade there because two of your major inking weapons are now taken out of the game. So, and I find it so fascinating. Obviously, again, talking about what Healbook playing to their strengths. Why would Len change from a blaster? It is what they know and it's what they do best. But that really eliminates a lot of inking power for Healbook utilizing Len, unless Len is able to really deliver on the picks here, which so far Enemy has kind of had the stronger foothold in the game because just seconds ago, that was 3 members down on Healbook and a really, really solid presence in mid here. And I'm also thinking of Prosper in this moment because I haven't really seen Prosper get to move around at all with that Snipe Rider.
2 consecutive 3-down situations forced against Healbook. Prosper quite literally backed into a corner in the final seconds of this one. Healbook showing a little bit of resilience, just under a minute left in this match, but a nearly 20% victory for NME as they, Milana, take a 2-1 lead in this match.
Yeah, I think, you know, like we mentioned, it was very difficult for Healbook to kind of get a footing in this last game. And I kind of wanted to build off of the fact that, you know, Len did choose the weapon that he is best with, but Blaster, not necessarily the best Turf War weapon, right? We don't have that painting power that we are looking for as far as being able to kind of provide that turf. And it seemed like Healbook wasn't even able to get a footing to give Len the maneuverability that he needs to be able to kind of move forward and get the picks that he needs. So I think Enemy was really great at being able to target what exactly, you know, the main turfers, I would say, of Healbook. So, you know, Prosper not being able to kind of move forward with the rest of their team and kind of trapping the most of Healbook in their spawn area for a majority of that game was it was very detrimental to them, but it was a great job on Enemy's part.
And Saf, I want to get your opinion on sort of a continuation of what Milana said, where she brought up Len being on that blaster. It's what they're known for. It's what they typically play. You know, you see it on something like Splatoon. Splatoon has that one concentrated area that you're consistently looking at. Whereas with Turf War, you're going around basically the entire stage trying to claim as much of it as possible. Does it boil down to basically these teams focusing on one area being a better recipe for success as a blaster player, or is there more to it, including what the rest of your team and the enemy team is bringing to the table?
Well, that's what I'm thinking is I wonder if there was just a breakdown in communication because right at the beginning of the game, Len was there and ready to fight. Like Len showed up to the fight 10 minutes early, you know, like they were more than on time, but Enemy was not there to meet their energy. And I wonder about that a lot, because like Mel was saying earlier on, like DatKid was just in the spawn painting the spawn for quite a while. And we didn't really see DatKid come down to the center stage probably until like a minute and a half left in the game. And they were able to take a trade in the corner with JJ. But I wonder of like how Healbook maybe could have capitalized on that a little bit more. The fact that DatKid was opted to more of a painting role versus an aggressor and somebody that could go toe to toe with them. But it still felt like Healbook couldn't capitalize on the distance. They couldn't capitalize on getting a little bit closer and maybe doing a little bit more in the spawning area of NME. And NME was able to utilize their resources just that much better in that scenario. And so to Mel's point, was there enough inking power for Len to work with? Yes, there was. But maybe Len was a little more eager to jump into that moment than the other folks of Healbook.
Well, NME trying to punch their ticket to grand finals with a win versus a Healbook team that would love to take this one to a game 5. Taking a look, Milana, at the swaps. DatKid going over to the Paintbrush Nouveau, I believe, and that's a Splatter Scope on the opposite side of things that Prosper will be swapping over to.
Yeah, so Splatter Scope I think is interesting. We do have the ink that going to be able to be utilized with the Rainmaker, but I feel like in general scoped weapons don't tend to be used nearly as often as perhaps unscoped weapons. It does give you a little bit more range, however you do lose a little bit of your peripheral vision as you zoom in. So that is the main difference between a scoped weapon and an unscoped weapon. So I think maybe they're relying on comms from their teammates to be able to kind of look a little bit to see where the opponents are. But NME, as I'm yapping, NME does break that first checkpoint. Oh my god, and I think that resulted in a wipeout? Okay, hold on. So there was an ink bag that came out, popped the Rainmaker. It just so happened that the whole enemy team was there, no pun intended again, and it was resulted in a wipeout, and that gave maybe Healbook an opportunity to kind of dunk into that first checkpoint as well.
That was huge because DatKid had the Trizuka ready. That was the follow-up, and they, along with one of their teammates, gets taken down as Dark will similarly go down to JJ there on that Inkjet as we see Healbook taking the Rainmaker back. Both teams have gotten that first checkpoint here, Sap, but Ty's going to go to the runner as Healbook looks to steal that lead away.
There's a reason that this was a counter pick, and one of my first notes on it is literally JJ got Inkjet in the first 12 seconds of the game. There was a reason for this to be the pick coming up from Healbook, and I'm wondering if they're proving it right now. Down to the 27 mark, they quickly turned it around and popped the checkpoint. It took full advantage of that wipeout. But now NME finding themselves closer and closer to the driver's seat. Nobody can infiltrate and pick up the Rainmaker on the side of Healbook. So trying to opt for the reset and really successful at reclaiming mid at that. So now the Rainmaker back in the center stage. Everybody from NME is there and present and ready to go. The Killer Whale may be going to be the key that opens up the gate, but not if Prosper has anything to say about it. You have a Vac versus Vac fight on the ramp here. It's just a matter of whose is going to end first, and Dark finding more success.
It's going to be a 2v2 here, and you look at Mahi Mahi on this mode compared to others as Dark is going to fall. There's not nearly the amount of obstacles, so specials like the Trizuka are much more in play, in addition to the Inkjet as Len going to trade out with 3Z there, and DatKid going to look for any remaining members of Healbook that they can pick off as they respawn, trying to give NME some time here going forward as DatKid might be able to get some redemption with that Trizuka before they had that pop. JJ's going to go down, it looks like, as a result. Prosper going to fall as well. Big success there as Adapt is going to go down too. NME with free reign to rush forward. Zero with the plant, and that will do it. Winners finals won by NME 3-1, sending them to grand finals, Milana, and sending Healbook down to the loser side of the bracket.
You know, we didn't really get to mention it too much, but Mahi Mahi is a stage where it's just so small, and especially for a mode like Rainmaker, you notice it really only took like 10 seconds from them to make it from the center of the stage all the way to the gold pedestal, if even that, right? So having that wipeout and being, having the wipeout from Heelbook, I think it's so detrimental, especially for a stage like this, because you can't even respawn in the time that it takes for you to take that Rainmaker all the way to the end. So, I think in that case, Enemy targeted the right people. They, we had Dat Kid with that Trizuka getting the right picks and getting that wipeout, and that was just it for Heelbook.
Saf, I want to get your thoughts on that match as a whole, because it was so interesting seeing the interplay between these two teams. And even in that last game, I think there were moments where, for example, I think Adapt had control of the Rainmaker, had free reign to move forward a little bit, and then opts to sort of squid roll back and take their time a little bit. They don't end up winning that fight. So a couple of what ifs, I'm sure, for Heelbook, as they look to make their way through losers and have a revenge match against Enemy and Grants.
And I really don't think that Heelbook was at a great disadvantage in the entirety of this set. Like, not just this game, but the entirety of the set. Like, from Heelbook's standpoint, I feel completely winnable. There's just little steps and things to adjust to make it winnable. So it's just, how do you adjust? Like, now that they're in the loser side of things, they have a moment to try to redeem themselves. They have a little bit of time to fight through and try to see if they can redeem themselves to go against Enemy once again. So I'm wondering, okay, how do we recalibrate and force our way through losers to try to do it again? And one thing I'm thinking of too, especially, is that the difference that it made for Dat Kid to switch over to a weapon such as like a brush of any kind that they're very comfortable with really was a different gameplay that we got to see from the folks of Enemy. Because as Mel said, as soon as Dat Kid was there to respond and took out two different members, it was open season. Like, there was nobody there. And one thing I really want to point out in the final seconds is that Zero did not hesitate going to the pedestal. They did not hesitate because they had full trust that someone was going to paint their feet for them. So they didn't even stop and like wait a second and be like, oh shoot, I gotta use the Rainmaker to paint. It was like, nope, they know exactly what's going to happen, and the steps were already taken before Zero even got there. So it's just the amount of trust that you have to have in your teammates to support you in that way to really try to close it out was really huge, and Enemy just did that so perfectly.
Well, why don't we take a look at that last push there from NME, see how they capped off that winners finals victory. Dat Kid with this Trizuka making great use of it, protected by the splash wall as well, getting JJ from distance, it looked like, and then also finding Prosper on the opposite side, taking down some of the longest range that Heelbook had to offer. Adapt going down last, and not just Trust, but the painting there from 3Z. You can see the explosion, Milana, as well, from the ink bag to cement things too. And as we come up with our bracket here, we see NME moving on to Grands as Heelbook will await the winner of Content Cat and Scuba in loser semifinals. That one should be an absolutely fun match to watch.
Yeah, totally. I'm actually really looking forward to this because we saw that they were able to play against each other in winners quarters final, where Scuba came out on top at a very close 3-2 win. And, you know, I mentioned that I wanted to kind of be a fly on the wall in this set that we didn't get to spectate, and now we get to spectate it. So I'm really excited for this.
Well, Saf, let's talk about Content Cat for a moment. We've gotten to see and talk about Scuba before, and we mentioned with Content Cat, they've had their ups and downs. They had that amazing losers bracket run in week 2, getting to second in that top 8 the very next week, 21st in the ladder. And then, you know, after that in week 4, a 4th place finish in top 8 with some big wins, including a 3-1 victory over Scuba. So for Content Cat, I think hoping a little bit that history is going to repeat itself here.
Well, hoping that history will repeat, but also like in a way that favors you, because you don't want to be in a 3-2 against Scuba again. If you're Content Cat, you don't really want the set to go the distance. I mean, underneath it, it's like, yeah, I do. Just for the struggle, the sheer enjoyment of the struggle. But you don't want to, if you really wanted like the tournament to get closed out and you want to move forward in the tournament. So you don't want it to take too long. I'm just like smiling ear to ear right now, just knowing the people on Content Cat, and like knowing that I've gotten to personally sit and talk to a lot of those people in the past. And knowing that I get to watch them here again, as I have in many different instances before, just makes me all the more excited to watch them face an opponent that has given them a lot of trouble.
And taking a look at that Content Cat roster, you know, in previous weeks, they've been comprised mainly of Pika, Kronos, Gimme, and Hawaiian. Hawaiian playing weapons like the Inclined Tri-Stringer, the Wellstring V, the Bulbs Tri-Stringer, and being replaced, at least in the latter portion of this week, by Saint Loser, who's primarily Milana been on the Sticker Splatana Stamper. So Gimme being kind of this Dapple Dooley's one trick, playing either that or the Dapple Dooley's Niveau. You have this amazing enigmatic player in Pika who could play all sorts of things. They've also played the Wellstring, but they mainly play blasters right now, like the custom or vanilla blaster, that Luna Blaster Neo, and then being rounded out as teams oftentimes have to be by Kronos, who can play this either Snipe Rider or this Tri-Slosh Nouveau, some kind of either long or short range support type weapon.
Yeah, I think what makes Content Cat a really special team is they are unapologetically themselves, which means that they are like the epitome of I play a weapon that I want and I make it work. And I know we talked about it in terms of Healbook, and we talked about it in terms of other teams as well, but Content Cat, that is their branding. They're like, we're just gonna play whatever we want and see what sticks. And what I really, really appreciate about Content Cat is that they are experimental to the highest degree, which means that, you know, they have such a wide breadth of weapons that they can play, and they're just like, well, okay, if this didn't work, I don't know, let me throw out a Luna Neo. Let's see what might stick with that, right? And that's not necessarily the most popular weapon, especially in competitive Splatoon, but they try different things and they want to see what works with that kind of variety. And I know, Saf, you love variety, so I know that you're probably just as big of a Content Cat fan as you are a Healbook fan.
Huge.
And to get your points on that as well, Saf, you know, we might see a potential Sticker Splatana v Sticker Splatana matchup in Leafy versus Saint Loser. So looking at Scuba's composition a little bit more, we return to Kara, who's been playing either that Snipe Rider or that Heavy Splatling. Grape, mainly been on the Slosher because they haven't been playing for Nana this week. And then Mecha rounding it out. We saw earlier their struggles against Dat Kid, primarily on the Crab Tank as their special, maybe hoping that they can turn that around and have a proper showing here against Content Cat.
And I feel like they definitely can. Especially, again, it's one of those things where, okay, not even like a quick VOD review. It's just very much, okay, what worked, what didn't work. We are now facing our opponent that we went into a 3-2 scenario with. How do we try to combat this and maintain the same energy in that 3-2 so that it doesn't result in a lot more than what we asked for? And one thing I want to mention too, Zach, that you brought up was as soon as you were listing off Pika's weapon pool, in my mind, immediately I was like, no mini Splatling? Where's the mini Splatling? Because that was all over the place last season with Pika, and in other events we've got to see Pika really shine on the mini Splatling. And so the fact that you didn't bring that up at all, I'm like, wow, we're truly the definition of a jack of all trades.
Yeah, it's that depth of what you can bring and that unpredictability that gives you kind of an edge when you're facing an opponent. And to sort of borrow that phrase from Milana, they're this very unpredictable team that can play just about anything under the sun, and some things that you likely haven't either scrimmed against or played in other tournaments against very often. So it makes it difficult to adapt when you're not used to, as compared to other weapons, playing against that play style or where they might elect to set themselves up. So, Saf, we take a look at tower control on Manta Maria as our first mode and stage. Manta Maria I want to focus on in particular because we have seen it a decent bit in previous weeks, but in comparison to the other stages, it is pretty rare to witness.
I feel like we have been treated so well today with our stage variety. Like, the modes are one thing and it's kind of par for the course, but the fact of the matter is that we've gotten to really span across a lot of different stages here today, and that makes me so happy, and even more so that it's tower control and Manta Maria, because I feel like we really get into the trap of falling into splat zones a lot, and I love that the opening keeps changing every time. So Manta Maria Tower, especially with the folks that we get to watch with this one, I'm at a loss for words. I'm not sure what's gonna happen here.
Well, it's a loser semifinal that features a redo of a winner's bout between the 4th seeded Scuba and the 5th seeded Content Cat. Here, Milana taking a look at the weapons being brought out. Hawaiian going to be on that tri-stringer. It will, in fact, be Hawaiian coming in instead of State Loser. So they will have that backline element in addition to the Dapple Dualies. And on the opposite side of things, a relatively standard comp highlighted by that Tri-Nouveau.
Yeah, totally. And I think, something to kind of note about Scuba's comp is that we have a double bucket comp, a double slosher comp, which I think makes a lot of sense when we consider Manta Maria's ups and down, and especially this platform in the middle of the stage right here, and not to mention the grates as well. So being able to utilize these walls and to be able to kind of fling some ink around the walls, I think is going to be beneficial for Scuba.
And they're looking to position themselves. They were pretty patient, waiting for the members of Content Cat to show themselves on the walls. There are lots of walls here to shark around on. Pika's kind of been doing that here and there as they charge in with that point sensor. Will get taken down pretty immediately by Grape, who is marked. We'll go ahead and opt to use the triple Ink Strike to move forward as well. Kronos will fall, Gimme having to back off, but Saf, again, a mostly stalemated stage here as there's lots of room to maneuver around in, despite another double on a blaster, this time being heralded by Leafy.
Yeah, the score settles that Scuba is in the lead, but make no mistake, this is a very stalematy game because our tower has not really shifted too much from the middle section here on this stage. So Hawaiian coming in onto the higher ground, super good as a bow player, and especially using that Inkjet, you want to get as high up as possible. This could be a really solid opening for them, especially with Hawaiian getting 2. That's 2 members down going on Scuba, but there's nobody from Content Cat that is there to follow up. And especially with Kronos here on this Forge Pro, I'm really thinking about them in this moment, especially because Brella is usually their bread and butter on something like this, but you have to do what's best to try to support the weapons that you have already playing on the team. And perhaps the Forge Pro is the way, because first checkpoint going into the hands of Content Cat.
You like having a Dapple Dualies as well. Not only can you get your team back into the action, as it was basically a 2v1 for Content Cat for a bit as they try to claim the lead, but also was able to hold on to that Tacticooler until their team was there, claiming the lead and getting to that second checkpoint. As now Kronos going to charge up the Booyah Bomb, seeing that Content Cat is scattering left and then coming back to their right. Hawaiian getting one pick there on the crate, but second, the direct onto Kara, forcing a wipeout here, Saf, and giving them a substantial lead.
Oh, Hawaiian, my goodness, the work that you have put in to get Content Cat to this moment. Now at the 14-point mark, they have to jump out though. They have to jump out because that is like being in the beehive, and the bees have now been attuned to where you are. If you are trying to infiltrate in the hive, you have to get out of there as quickly as possible. And Scuba knows this because look at how far pushed up they are right now, Zach. They have everybody literally trying to take over the midsection. There's nobody there, where the tower is closer and closer to their end checkpoint than it is to the middle. At least not at this point, but at the moment that they were trying to take mid, it was a little bit dicey there, but they knew that there was no one there to try to stop them. So this is a really good response coming out from Scuba.
Yeah, Scuba, to their great credit, they're playing with this hunger and aggression, but they're not overstepping, right? They're basically inviting Content Cat to come into mid as we see a great sort of 45-degree flick direct from Leafy that's going to result in a 2-down situation for Content Cat, and this will help that push to keep going here. Backed off as Leafy falls. Gimme will constantly be providing pressure here, jumping back into these beacons and being so dodgy with the rolls on the Dapple Dualies. Will finally be conquered there as Mecha falls too, and Milana, Content Cat doing a good job at playing defense while also just relenting a tad bit, so Scuba is invited in.
Yeah, so I just want to highlight those beacons that, members of Content Cat are constantly jumping into, because not only is it going to get you back into the action quicker, what it's actually doing is it's providing a distraction. So as Scuba is on the tower, as they're trying to make that push happen, if they suddenly find that there is, say, a Dapple Dualies player flanking them from behind, they're going to have to divert their attention away from the objective to be able to handle that. And I think that is going to delay all of these pushes that Scuba is trying to make here, and not really quite connecting as far as gaining the points that they're going to need with only 20 seconds left on the clock. So they're going to have to sit on this tower and stay there until the end, hopefully getting the lead for them. But Content Cat is really working hard to make sure that this tower is not moving anywhere.
Scuba with a semblance of an advantage to start this one as Hawaiian is able to take down Kara with the Inkjet backing off as the Booyah Bomb comes out as well. Leafy trying to scramble on top of the tower. They beat Kronos to it, but Kronos in that sort of jump battle is going to land on their feet and help get the pick. So Scuba with the strong start. Content Cat, though, with the stronger finish here, Saf, as they will take game 1 on Manta Maria.
My biggest takeaway from that, Zach, is that there was a moment in those last couple of minutes where there was 2 members of Scuba, like in which Czar, thank you so much for showing us this because it was so important. The tower sat in the center for such a long time that there were 2 members of Scuba pushing Hawaiian and Kronos a lot over on the right hand side. There was nobody from Scuba to take the tower. So that was a lot of time that unfortunately could not have been utilized to move that tower. It was more so focused on fighting Content Cat and like being more aggressive towards them, but there was nobody there to take the tower. Now imagine the difference it would have made for Scuba if you had had 1 member on the tower with those 2 pushing Kronos and Hawaiian, because that would mean that Kronos and Hawaiian would have had so much more to focus on rather than just the fight. They didn't have to worry about the objective moving at all. So I wonder if maybe the categorization of events and tasks that needed to be taken care of was a little bit misjudged by Scuba on that one.
Yeah, it was Hawaiian who was flat out outranging Adapt on that left or right hand side, depending on how you're looking at it. Adapt just simply not able to reach Hawaiian, and that's a pretty easy pick on the only player that was really even remotely close to the tower in that moment. The rest of Scuba sent far, far forward to create an opening for themselves, but the one person who could have had an effect on the tower, not able to get back to it by nature of taking that 1v1 that they quite literally were hard pressed to win. So Milana, as we take a look at game 2, our mode will be Turf War. So sensing a theme here, as multiple times now Turf War has emerged in the first 3 games alongside Splat Zones.
Yeah, and I think it's honestly on brand, I think, with Content Cat as the wild card of, say, competitive Splatoon, as a wild card, not the only one, as a wild card of competitive Splatoon, to kind of go into Turf War, because I think what they really like to do is they just play the game, right? They just want to be able to turf the ground. They want to be able to get the picks that they need. And I think it's going to play to their strengths. I know that Pika plays a mean reflux, so I think having that under their belt, I think, is going to be advantageous as well.
Saf, we go to Mako Mart for Turf War here in game 2. It's the second most common Turf War stage heading into today for top 8s. And you have to imagine if they want to run something like that double bucket comp, it would be very interesting to see. Leafy will be on that Sticker Splatana, and Kronos going to be the one on the Sticker Splatana Stamper, as we also see a few other interesting weapons come out for Content Cat.
I really appreciate these picks coming out from Kronos, just because I know that their sole weapon is the Tent Umbrella, and they're really just not playing to what their soul would want them to do. But I really think that is what makes them such a strong player, is that they will deviate from the norm in order to do what they can for their team. And I feel like with Content Cat, that has been proven through and through with their weapon choices here. Opening statements, though, being made here on Turf War on Mako Mart, and already you can see Content Cat has a huge leg up on the scenario. They are very present in the middle section. Hawaiian already had a stack to themselves for quite a while there. However, unfortunate jump-ins, though, coming out. Kronos is going down with Gimme, trying to see if they can follow up. Leafy is going to take in on the side. Gimme not finding too much success in that battle there. However, what are we to do about a Booyah Bomb coming in? Because Hawaiian is going to have to be displaced here.
I think Gimme went to the Lens school of rushing. They were one of the first ones to get into mid. They immediately wrapped around the back end of Scuba's side of the stage, and it was pretty effective. They got the trade, and they got multiple people looking at them. They were taken down by Leafy. Now gets the pick onto Grape, looking for the second and finds it on the Mecha. Can they get the third? And they get revenge. They're on to Leafy. Can they find the dirty fourth? They're going to be aided by the Booyah Bomb. Wraps around, has the Reef Slider to boot. They'll get one low, but if nothing else, Milana, they have gotten multiple members of Scuba distracted distracted and very low.
Yeah, and you know what? When you get into that position, your opponents are going to be panicking because you're like, oh my god, this person just took out 3 of us and now they are in my base. We have to focus on them. And, you know, that's not to say the rest of Content Cat isn't doing work. We see Hawaiian with that double right there. And with just a little bit over a minute left on the clock, if they can continue this kind of momentum, this kind of pressure against Scuba, it's looking good for the rest of the team.
Yeah, they're seeing offense on both ends of the range extreme as Scuba tries to get an advantage going forward here. They have the triple ink strike. Pika with a nice flick there to take down Grave. Maybe one of those trick shots that Saf was talking about earlier. But now Content Cat going 2 down at a pretty inopportune time, forcing Pika Saf to back off here.
Yeah, I love what Pika is going to have to try to recalibrate and do here, because this is no small feat for the folks of Scuba. But I feel like the one-on-one fight from Content Cat has been a little bit more advantageous here. I'm seeing so much more blue on the stage than orange really taking over anything here. And I'm wondering too if that also has to do with the presence of Hawaiian where they've been. Because also, I want to point out, Hawaiian has taken out the ceiling sprinkler. You don't want the ceiling sprinkler to wreak havoc on you. And could that contribute to Content Cat's success here? I don't know. I'm going to say yes, though.
They're going to have the super chumps coming out in the final moments of this one. However, Scuba has mounted a pretty incredible comeback here in the middle of the stage. Content Cat hoping that they did enough.
Wow.
We'll take a look at the results, and it will be Content Cat. Their early gameplay holds strong in the final few seconds here, Saf, as we see a victory from them on Turf War in Game 2.
I was really hoping for those ink strikes for them. The ink strikes on the far right side, like that was good. That was good placement of those. And especially having the 2 kind of stacked on top of each other. But like, yeah, that was I could really see the vision with that one, but just not quite up to snuff.
Milana, it was emphatic. I love that word, and it fits how Content Cat played Turf War. I mean, Saf mentioned before that game got started, it made sense as a mode for them to go to as a counter pick. Now they get the opportunity to make another counter pick with the mode to potentially sweep Scuba if they can win Game 3. Where is this all coming from?
You know, I just think they're just so confident in the weapons that they play. And I think that confidence kind of is working out well in their favor. Because, you know, sometimes confidence can come off as arrogance. And then arrogance means that you're pushing too far. You're not really like working with your team. But in this case, this confidence is coming from, hey, I think I can win these fights. And they're getting 2, 3, the complete team wipeout, right? And because of that, Scuba's having a really difficult time gathering their footing to be able to even make those counter picks, which we know that they're completely capable of because all of those players are incredible players as well. But without that footing, without the turf, they're not going to be as successful nearly as Content Cat.
Saf, it's fitting to go over to you here as the selection for both the mode and the stage are in for Game 3. It is Clam Blitz, and it is arguably the most populous and popular stage for Clam Blitz, Museum de Alfonsino, for game number 3.
I'm grateful that we haven't seen Museum until right now. If I'm being honest, I'm grateful that Museum has not come up until this moment. But I feel like this is a pivotal moment in where Museum can be at the center stage here, especially because it is such a competitive place to be, especially on Clam Blitz. There are so many different obstacles, not to mention moving obstacles that you need to keep a track of when you are trying to infiltrate the basket area of your opponent. And I mean, already just right out the gate, you have a lot of the members of Scuba down on the center stage trying to claim a lot of territory that they can, already increasing their economy very quickly, whereas Content Cat has 0.
And Hawaiian feeling confident in that incline tri-stringer to stay on it. They're also going to have that custom blaster, but they'll go 2 down. It looks like Scuba was one of the first Milana here to lock down control of mid. There's still a semblance of purple here as Pika tries to get the jump on Mecha, but Mecha looks like redeeming themselves with this Splash-O-Matic and this Crab Tank.
You know, now that, Dat Kid doesn't have that Crab Tank on the other side, I think Mecha is going to be utilizing a lot of that Crab Tank to be able to set up and make space for their teammates. But remember, Clam Blitz is such a measured mode because there's a lot of puzzle pieces that just kind of have to fit together to be able to make a meaningful push. So we have to think Clams economy, like Saf said. We have to think, are we making this push happen? And are we continuing this push? Are we providing space for pushes to continue to happen? So these are all things that all these teams have to kind of consider before they even move forward to making this push. But at this moment, they're at the point where Pika gets a double. Actually, with 3 down on the side of Scuba, this could be an opportunity for Content Cat to move forward, but they're going to need a power clam even before they consider that.
Why don't we give Zara another shout out there? So that's going to be the 3rd double we've witnessed recently with blasters today. That is phenomenal. And Hawaiian, who's now jumped down from that overlook, has basically been playing hide and seek with the members of Scuba. And I'll give you a secret, they're not the hiders. We see Pika pushing forward, Kronos getting that power clam in. That's the 2nd one. So that's going to get them down to 60. Hawaiian seeing the writing on the wall and moving back. Saf, it took about 2 minutes, but our first push has come to fruition, and Scuba's hoping for the 2nd.
See, okay, so for a moment there, I was wondering, okay, but does Gimme know? Does Gimme know that we're jumping back to the spawn right now? They were able to take one with them, though, so hey, you know what? We'll give them their flowers for that one. Scuba, though, having the upper hand now in the respawning area. They have 14 clams online, including a power clam there. Unfortunately, though, the carrier is going to go down in the center stage. So you have to remember that that power clam in your hands does put a target on your back. You have to be watching out to see who is going to try to look for you here. Hawaiian is one of those people as well, which obviously getting called out very quickly in the center stage. They threw the ball away to land on it to jump back out again. Okay, that I don't know if that was calculated or if that just happened to be luck for Hawaiian to have all of those events work out in their favor. But even with Content Cat trying to jump back into the defensive side of things, Scuba is here to open the basket with follow-up.
Yeah, they need that follow-up as they had another power clam that's about to despawn. A couple of members trying to go for it. Mecha was one of them. They will not get that power clam. Tried to content themselves with taking down Hawaiian, the power clam carrier, but they will have to back off and will not make it out alive as they get spotted and they will fall. Hawaiian setting up. It feels like they've set up in multiple places with great success here. Leafy a little late in getting that splash ball down, but Milana with just over a minute and a half left to go. Both of these teams have stayed pretty even in the amount of clams that they're holding on to, and their pushes have been relatively even as a result too.
Yeah, but you know what? It is Content Cat's game to lose, which means that they just have to play a good defense. Hypothetically, a push to 60 is not necessarily the strongest push, but they do have the lead. And now we have Scuba with 2 power clams moving towards the clams basket here. Mecha getting a little bit scared, seeing Kara go down as well. The crab tank coming out, but you know, Hawaiian is getting the picks that they need. They're using that range to their advantage, but with 3 down on the side of Content Cat, they're going to need to make this power clam happen here, but they don't have the power clam at the ready, so they're wasting a little bit of time as Content Cat is coming back from spawn. 2 clams with Grape right here. They're going to need to get all of those clams in. A push to 58 is the lead, but it is a very slim lead indeed.
Yeah, you look at what could have been at one point at least 21 clams at their disposal, but again, you don't ask how, you just ask how many points, and they got enough with that last clam to get the lead as Pika will go down, but Leafy followed after them. It's 3 down for Content Cat, and with 14 clams at their disposal, Scuba looking to extend their lead. A power clam will get them through that penalty and more with 18 seconds left to go, and all they really need to do, Sav, is keep the pressure on and make sure Content Cat, just like Pika was trying to do, can't get behind them.
I was about to say, I'm like, well, pressure's on because not even Pika can get a flank in when Mecha's up there. So that's going to open up the gateway for Scuba right away because you take out the flanking wasn't even an option for Content Cat. So at that point, when you're in the last like few seconds of the game, what is one to do? Scuba forces their way onto the board now in a 2-1 scenario.
And Milana, this is not a situation that we've had to see very often, but we talk about this idea of if you are deciding the mode for game 4, you're also deciding the mode for game 5. And that's a decision now given over to Scuba. On the flip side, though, Content Cat, the ability to choose the stage, and we've only seen 3. There's 9 left that they can go to react to the mode that is picked here by Scuba. And we have both Rainmaker and rarely enough Splat Zones here to the point where if we need a game 5, Splat Zones could be the very last thing that we go to.
I feel like it's just an inkling that I have. Also, no pun intended. Sorry.
You meant it.
I did. I meant it with my full gut. I did. I feel like Scuba is going to go with Splat Zones, and I feel like it's because Scuba is a very tried and true team. They have a lot of really experienced players, and we all know that experienced Splatoon competitive players love Splat Zones, so I feel like that's what they think is tried and true. Now, the question is, where is Content Cat going to take that if it goes to Splat Zones? And you know what? I'm just gonna go maybe Robo Ramen because we think wild card. Let's think something a little bit outside the box.
I want that for you.
Yeah,
I want that for
you. Thank you. I feel like it's not gonna happen. Okay, you know what?
Maybe not.
Maybe not. I don't know.
I meant to say it earlier, but you were talking earlier about how much we'd been granted today from a stage perspective. And I was thinking, oh, but Milana mentioned how much she wanted to see Robo Ramen, and we haven't seen it. And unfortunately, we will continue not to see it. And on top of that, we might have even seen a commentator's curse from Milana, as indeed Splat Zones will be held for a potential Game 5. And Saf, Rainmaker is the pick as we go over to Undertow Spillway.
And I think this is correct. I think this is the correct choice. I mean, I know if you're Content Cat, you want to end things as quick as possible. But also, to Mel's point, if you don't want to pick Splat Zones just yet, because it's like, okay, let Splat Zones be the final destination, if you will. Let Splat Zones be the end of it, if we are to go to a Game 5. But if we want to try to close it out quickly, then yeah, maybe Rainmaker is the choice. But also, I'm glad that it's on Undertow because, I mean, it's going to be an exciting one. Because Undertow Rainmaker, I feel like you really have to calculate the risk here. You really have to be good at fighting it at close corners. It's very similar to that Scorch scenario, right? You either have the wall or you got the pit that goes into nowhere. So you really have to try to assess what is going to be the most advantageous for you when you are fighting close quarters.
Well, Scuba trying to assess their way into a Game 5 where they can take down Content Cat, whereas Content Cat trying to end it here and advance on to the losers finals. Milana, I'm seeing one major switch up, and that's going to be Hawaiian going over to that Wellstring V with the Auto Bomb and the Ultra Stamp.
I love this. I love this for Hawaiian and for Content Cat because when we see the Wellstring, it is mostly not just to throw the Ultra Stamp, but it's mostly because it has such it's so strong, right? It has a lot of turfing power, which means that it is very, very quick at being able to pop the Rainmaker. And because it is quick to pop the Rainmaker, it really can catch the other team a little bit unsuspectedly. And we see that, speaking of unsuspected, we see that Content Cat decides to go to this right checkpoint here. Now, whether they decide to continue this push on this right side or not is a different story, but a quick checkpoint is never a bad thing.
Yeah, definitely the closer one is Content Cat has all the makings that you would want for Rainmaker. They've got the ink bag, they've got the dapple dualies, which can give you the beacons, and they have an offensive player in Pika advancing forward and then jumping back to retain the progress that they made with that triple splashdown. Hawaiian temporarily picking up the Rainmaker and then falling. Leafy trying to get a pick there onto Gimme, who's rolling around as they are wont to do, but Leafy Sav eventually tracks them, and we have this back and forth here as Scuba with a couple going down on Content Cat's side might look to move the Rainmaker.
I love that Leafy was able to take care of some errands before that jump was able to land. They were like, okay, yeah, I'm going to go over here. We're going to put some ink down over here. Okay, now let's turn around. This person's coming in. Let's go. I love the amount of time that you have to try to be like, okay, what is the best thing that is going to work out for me here? So Scuba now having advantageous placing with the Rainmaker here. Kara is going to push Hawaiian, which is a really, really good idea to do. Because just based on what I've been seeing from Content Cat so far, Hawaiian has been a very menacing force to try to reckon with on the backline. Kronos up here taking down 2, assisting in a 3rd. So even with Scuba having a decent setup and having a lot of ink on the ground, Content Cat is still here to stay with no checkpoint standing in their way. It just the stars really just have to align here to have a clear pathway.
Yeah, Hawaiian not able to survive previously the ring around the rosy attack there from Kara, but picks up the Rainmaker and is trying to move it at least back to where they can survive. They will go down right before the Horseshoe of Doom, which I can't believe it took me this long to say. Pika getting the pick there onto Grape as Mecha will also go down. Content Cat losing a couple of members as well, though, so trying to stay alive here. Gets the pick there onto Grape, and Saf has past the halfway mark here. Just one team breaking one checkpoint as Scuba, once again, with this more metered style of play.
Well, this could maybe be the change that we want to see, Zach, because Scuba coming in close here to take the fight to them. That's Leafy taking out Hawaiian. You had Mecha in a really great 1v1 and taking down somebody there. Kara now having the Rainmaker. Leafy is in a great setup here to try to get Kara to the checkpoint safely. Just suspending a little bit too long, though. The VAC is out. The triple splashdown is out. Kara now almost having to start from square one and allow the members of Scuba to try to help them to get there. Mecha pushed forward, helping to take down Pika. There's one more in the corner. That's Kronos over there being pushed by Leafy, but Leafy gets taken down. It's a very important ebb and flow here to try to get Kara to safety.
Yeah, and a couple of potential picks just barely missed by Kara. You could see the great angle that they had where their shot was just going over that landing point of the Horseshoe of Doom as we see the shot coming out and missing Gimme by mere inches. Gets the pick on the Grape, can't roll through any other members of Scuba, and now Content Cat not necessarily looking to respond in kind, Milana, but just making sure that that Rainmaker stays as far away from their side of the stage as possible.
Yeah, but you know, Scuba is not far away from either of these checkpoints. They honestly could opt even to go that right side, but you know, they want to make a more substantial push than just to be able to get the checkpoint. 2 down on the side of Content Cat. Leafy right here in a great position to give support to their teammates while they cross that first checkpoint, but Scuba is going to have to pick up that Rainmaker and move it just an inch forward to be able to get the lead. They are able to get the lead, and you know what? Even though they got the lead here, we see that Content Cat has kind of been on their back foot this entire game. With 30 seconds left on the clock, they're going to have to make some real moves to be able to kind of get real control of the game to move that Rainmaker forward.
It's that same idea from the Scorched Gorge Rainmaker game where you just kind of stumble forward and you get the lead, but Content Cat stealing the lead as a result. Hawaiian able to get all the way up to 26. The wipeout will come through, so Content Cat with a chance to knock out here. They're just going to hold on. Scuba trying to rally and see if they can do anything with the possibility of overtime. Kronos looked like they had a target, went to another, decided against it and went down, and that's Content Cat now going 3 down, but Scuba with not enough time to break the Rainmaker's shield. It's a game of inches and a game of seconds, and Content Cat will take that every day of the week as they take the match here in game 4 on Undertow Spillway here, Sav.
I'm blown away. I am blown away because, I mean, to smithereens. I'm blown to smithereens because the fact that Hawaii, like for me, this entire set, the MVP has been Hawaiian. Because I love to see a bow player really shine in a very tough tournament, but also Hawaiian's maneuvering throughout this entire set is what has gotten Content Cat the win here. Content Cat lost to Scuba 3-2 earlier in the top 8. Content Cat has now beaten Scuba in a 3-1. So there was a very big change in personnel, in game energy, in whatever you want to call it. Something happened in between that earlier top 8 match to now, to where Content Cat was like, we need to adjust as quickly as we can. We need to adjust and fix this right now, and we have to know what Scuba is bringing to the table after this first 3-2 matchup that we had. And I really think that Content Cat, yes, all the players, pat yourselves on the back because wow, what a set to watch. But also, they really got to be shaking Hawaiian's hand on this one because especially in those final seconds on that Rainmaker match, them walking up that ramp as far as they did to get lead as far as they did was huge.
And as a reminder, they may have lost 3-2 earlier to Scuba in this week, but in week 4, they beat Scuba 3-1. So a redux of that performance coming back into form for Content Cat. We talk about how swingy and momentum-based of a team they are. Let's take a look at a replay from game 1 in this super fun match. This one on Manta Maria, of course, Hawaiian dipping below the wall side there with this Inkjet, getting the pick there onto Kara and jumping back down, just trying to stay alive, and really made great use of this tri-stringer. This one was the bulbs. We saw them go over to the Inkline variant, Milana, but what an important and impactful player it's been as we see now Content Cat advancing to the losers finals to take on Heelbook.
You know, this is something that I have been looking forward to personally, because we said the same thing about Hubook and about Content Cat. Both of these teams have players that are true to themselves. They are true to the weapons that they enjoy playing, and they will continue to play it. And I think watching these two teams duke it out, as you know, like it's almost like a pride thing. Like, oh, I play my weapons better because I love my weapons more, or something like that, right? So it feels almost like coming full circle. I'm really looking forward to this.
Well, Content Cat hoping for another storybook run through losers, and we'll see losers finals here in a second. But, and again, I hate to throw it to myself or hit myself up at all, but I have to give it to myself and EE, who's going to take a look at the side order DLC. Let's have a look. Now, EE, I want to bring you into the Splatoon 3 expansion pass Inkopolis and Side Order DLC and give you a bit of an intro as to what to expect. As Agent 8, you wake up to discover Inkopolis Square has been drained of color and its residents have gone missing. Looming over the city is the ominous Spire of Order. Along with Pearl, fight off waves of enemies in floor after floor of challenges on your way to the top of the Spire and learn its secrets. How does that sound to you, EE?
Well, first off, it sounds very different from what we played and what I'm accustomed to. So just off of that, I'm very excited to get into it and explore and unlock some of these secrets. I don't have a weapon.
Yeah, where's your weapon?
Oh,
we
Lord.
don't have a main weapon for you yet. Oh, and you better find one quick, because here they come.
This is not ideal. This is not. I feel like this is side chaos, not order. I don't.
Yeah, it's chaotic to start. Look, you've already got a weapon. It's no big deal.
Is that dualies?
Yeah, you start with the dualies here.
Let's go. All right. Oh, I guess we just got to keep battling then. Okay.
Oh, that's a big boy.
Nice.
Nothing you can't handle.
I take you to follow Marina's voice here. Say what? You know Marina too? Oh, see, that's why we don't attack, Pearl. Mm-hmm. Let's all be friends.
Well, and unfortunately, Oct said that this elevator only goes one floor at a time. So you've got
really? Okay.
quite a ways to go.
Oh, dag. Okay. First floor. I love that damage counter right there.
Yeah, seeing all the damage that you, especially when you start to get different weapons, upgrade your weapon, it can feel great to see just how much damage you're pumping out.
100%.
You can see you have a different special and sub weapon as well.
It's on the ropes. Yes, it is. Kaboosh.
Bang! A little explosion, too, of your own ink color. Oh, they're coming from all directions.
Okay, I see why this might be listed as hard. Oh, no. Get away, get away, get away, get
Even
away,
that
get away.
easy, it can get a little tricky.
This is the easy one. Oh, we did it.
Nice.
Okay, the drone back there. Put 3 of them together and you can give the enemy a taste of the Step Off song. I don't know what it does, but I like the sound of it. All right, let's get it.
I'm curious, what do you think it does if you build all the pieces of the Step Off song?
I think it's going to create like some sort of like ranged protective ink barrier. Like just going to be spinning around and just hitting anything within the range. That's my guess. Play me a melody. Oh, dude, did I not call that?
That's pretty good. You were pretty well spot on. Now, this is what I was talking about. You can pick your path. Do you want to go easy? Do you want to go normal? Or do you want to go hard? And you can see the payout is different depending on what you choose.
You got to give the people a show.
Yeah.
We got to give them a show,
Love
Zach.
that for you. Love that. And 9 would be so proud of you. Yeah, you got that special online. You're going to try and get that lucky chain. Kaboom! Look at the damage numbers.
What were you guys thinking? Don't you know who I am? Don't you know who I am?
That is 9's protege for you right there. Too easy for EE.
Well, I think we have made it to the top floor, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh,
floor 10.
Control room.
I got a feeling I'm going to get some heartbreak right now.
Now that is a lot of baddies.
And that's okay, because we've
A
been
lot of
training.
wires connecting to whatever that terminal is in the middle.
Yeah, this ain't Marina, bro. I don't know who this is. Oh, is it really? Wait.
It might be. You
on.
may want to wait.
Intruders?
She really hit you with the intruder alert. That's crazy.
I thought we were friends.
Tough fates for Pearl and Marina. One gets turned into a drone and the other gets put in this weird machine.
This is the price we pay for order amongst chaos. Ooh, that sounded
Very
good.
poetic.
Oh, dude, this is hard. Well, okay.
Yeah,
This is
so
hard.
again, we ramp up and even ramp back down, and now it is at a full 10 out of 10. The barrier's down,
Oh,
it
nice.
says. Yeah,
Oh,
now
I
we
can
can
attack
shoot it.
this thing.
Yeah. Boom, big damage.
That was huge. I see you. Back off, buddy.
Yeah,
Back
enemies
off.
still spawning while all this chaos is happening.
That's fine. That's fine. They know that I'm close to cracking this.
Yep.
I'd be scared too. We got a free marina, bro. This is crazy.
Hashtag free marina.
You can't tell me that server. I don't know what's happening.
Get her out of there.
She's brainwashed.
She didn't look like herself. There was some kind of weird red activation thing on her glasses.
She needs our help.
All right. All right. Was that enough? Did we get her out?
I hope so.
She's coming out one way or another.
Okay. She came back to a normal
Slow
functioning size.
motion.
I was a little nervous there.
Oh.
Error, grayscaling interrupted, and troopers confirmed disorderly classifying it.
Oh, it hates disorder. It wants to keep the order of things.
Oh no. I have no further use for this vessel. All things will be converted to memory. This is a little scary right now. Perhaps.
Whoa. That's like a 10-story drop. You better be careful.
I hope someone catches us.
Like
what?
you caught Marina. And back at it with the title screen.
Oh, dude, these. Okay, drone pearl.
Saved by the
Clutch.
Pearl drone. Well, thank you, me, and hopefully I did well enough to train EE up on some side order. Hopefully you continue to see the adventures of EE learning the mechanics of Splatoon 3, because whether you're playing the campaign, the DLC, obviously the PvP that we're getting to watch, Anarchy Battles, it is so much fun any way you choose to imbibe it. And you can also do so tomorrow with the Splatoon 3 North American League Sunday Scrim, which will be happening at noon Pacific time. If you're more Salmon Run inclined, you can join that as a solo, duo, trio, or as a full squad of 4. Definitely feel free to join that. And Milana, I'll throw it over to you because I know you are also a big fan of Salmon Run yourself.
Yeah, I do. I mean, you can see it in my little thing right here, big money, big shot. And remember, it's not because I'm big money. It's because I really enjoy big shots from Salmon Run. So, you know, I really like taking down those balls. Oh. I could
We're
just
gonna have to
leave
think
now.
about
Ulterior
I
motive.
could just go now. But
Well-
you know, yeah, I love taking down those boss salmonids. So it's always a fun time.
Well, let's check out the bracket to see what progress we've made today in our top 8 as we look at our losers finals match coming up. We just witnessed Content Cat take down Scuba 3-1 on their way to advancing. Saf, Content Cat starting this losers run all the way in top 8. It's been 3-1s all the way, and now they're finally able to compete for a spot in grand finals.
All I can think about right now is the JJ versus Hawaiian Inkjet Extravaganza Royale. That's all I can think about, especially because JJ was just hitting their shots consistently. But then I feel like there were shots that Hawaiian was hitting that JJ was trying to do, but Hawaiian just did it a little better. So that, like, for me, I'm eyes in the sky and what's going to happen with our in-flight heroes.
It feels like for JJ, your weapon is the Brella, right? So it plays up close and you're using the Inkjet as, in part, a zoning tool. Whereas on the opposite side of things, Hawaiian is using it as an offensive weapon. They are trying to hit those single and double splats, and their main weapon gives them the range advantage that they're wanting. Taking a look at Healbook again quickly, we have a roster of JJ, Prosper, Len, and Adapt. And Milana, it's no secret that that team is chock full of strong players. As we take a look at game 1, which will be tower control, so not splat zones to start us off again, and this time it'll be on Hagglefish Market.
I think this is such an interesting stage for both of these teams because I think both of these teams can definitely utilize, some part of that, right? Like we've seen JJ play so expertly on tower control, being able to hold on to this tower and to be able to kind of make space for their teammates. We've also seen the tri-stringer coming out from Hawaiian to be able to kind of like launch those like lob shots onto the tower, and I think that could be pretty detrimental for even someone like JJ because, the umbrella really only protects you from the front, doesn't protect you from, which is interesting because, it's an umbrella, but you know what I mean. So I think it's going to be interesting to see this kind of dynamic play out as far as tower control and especially on a stage as measured as Hagglefish Market.
Saf, I'm torn for you on this one because I know you have strong feelings of both Healbook and Content Cat.
I love them
love
both.
to see both of them play. I guess there's no real losing here because the Splatoon should be fun, but does either team possibly have the edge coming through?
So I think the big thing for me is, so remember our conversation a little while ago about why was there no blaster on tower control? Mm-hmm. I don't think that's good. That's not going to happen here. Don't even count on that happening here. And what I find especially fascinating about Healbook's roster is that Adapt is also a very, very strong blaster player. But he's been kind of relegated to playing on the bucket, or elsewise, but mostly, that Tri-Slosher Nouveau has kind of been the delegated position for Adapt because you have someone like Len. You have someone like Len who is so dominant on the blaster and they are very well versed in it, but that's not to say that Adapt isn't either because arguably, Zach, you can say that a bucket can kind of play like a blaster in some similar fashions. So I really, really like the rosters on both of these teams. I mean, we're already in it, and I'm just like, I'm leaning up in my seat. I keep having to adjust where my position is, but I'm like in the screen right now watching what's happening.
Not only are we in it, but Healbook is picking up right where they left off. Content Cat on the back foot as we see Healbook being the first to push the tower. Prosper on that Snipe Rider 5B, holding it down. Here's that Inkjet from Hawaiian getting as much high ground as they possibly can. They do survive. Nothing gained on the back end. The Bria Bomb Alana helping to lock the tower down, at least for the moment. But this way, it's still going Healbook's way as they advance forward with the help of that big bubbler.
Yeah, and it looked like 3 down on both sides, it's almost like poetic that the last 2 alive were JJ and Hawaiian duking it out on this tower. But JJ grabbing that Inkjet and trying to get a pick, unfortunately not able to get too much out of that, but that is going to bring it to 3 down on Healbook, and Pika in a great position to get that wipeout and continue moving forward. This is going to be Content Cat's moment to shine.
So many duels to be on the watch for, the Inkjet v Inkjet and also the Blaster v Blaster. It is Vanilla versus Custom Blaster, but it will be Pika winning that one to help force the wipeout as Kronos is holding down the tower. Gimme, of course, because why wouldn't they be? Advancing far forward, takes down Lin, does not even mind the Inkstorm going through, cannot follow it up with another pick there. And Saf, Adapt jumping back out. We have a tied 60-60 ball game as Content Cat just pushes past it for the lead.
Yeah, there's a lot of focus on what Pika is doing right now, not so much focus on where the tower is going. You are now 6 points behind Content Cat if you are Healbook, and Pika is playing to full advantage of taking the distraction away from the objective. Once again, I feel like Content Cat has a really good handle on that. They want the folks of Healbook to get distracted because they know that they can distract them, because the folks of Healbook are hungry for picks, they're hungry for the splats, and they want to play as aggressive as they can. So Content Cat is going to use that to their advantage and be like, hey, come and fight me all the way over here where objective is not. But in that same fashion, though, they're still going to try to push the tower forward. JJ is the one defending on the side here, which is a really good position to be in, and especially because Hawaiian doesn't have an Inkjet of their own ready just yet. However, the range is factored into Kronos' side here. They are able to defend and take down JJ, now putting Content Cat back in the driver's seat.
Yeah, these are swingy teams. These are teams that love feeding off momentum. They love getting these big, flashy 3 and 4 down situations. And so I think it's going to be like that all the way through. As Content Cat pushing the tower using the 2 specials that they had built up. Here's the Inkjet of JJ trying to be spotted out. Has the protection temporarily of that canopy. Hawaiian finally gets enough shots on them to take them down. Will land right back on top of the tower here. And Milana forcing 2 down on Healbook as Content Cat as they extend their lead well past the original 50.
Yeah, they are nearing that final checkpoint right here. Hawaiian is staying steadfastly on this tower until now, where they're like, okay, but you know, the rest of Content Cat is still on this tower. They just have to break this checkpoint and just a little bit farther past that. Hawaiian Inkjet out again, and this is going to provide a lot of space. That Booyah Bomb is going to really seal the deal for Content Cat, allowing them to knock it out of the park.
And so much time, Saf, on the tower that there were 2 beacons just kind of harmlessly circling around, adding maybe just a touch of protection for the member of Content Cat pushing it forward. And definitely both teams with their opportunities to shine, but Content Cat looking so strong after the initial push by Healbook. It's another instance where a team absorbs the initial fiery start that a team has and is able to come right back and do the same thing over a series of 2 to 3 pushes.
As soon as the tower turned the corner from checkpoint 2, it was over. As soon as that happened, because Hawaiian was an Inkjet, towers moving underneath them. There's Healbook is trying their best to defend. Oh, what's that in the distance? Oh yeah, it's a Booyah Bomb. So like the amount of space that they had to work with was just not enough. And at that point, when you have the specials online and ready to go, like they were already closing the cover of that book before Healbook could even like start in the 3rd chapter. So
Milana, if you're Healbook, what is your response, not just to what happened in game 1, but to the composition that they brought? Because it felt like Hawaiian, as they did in the previous match that we got to witness, had free reign to pretty much do whatever they want, particularly on the Inkjet, where they did a great job of prioritizing getting high ground first. Whereas when JJ would use it, it looks like they were constantly under fire and couldn't exactly focus on landing that precise shot that they needed.
Yeah, so I think it really depends. It kind of is when they decided to use it, right? So I'm thinking Hawaiian uses it as a way to be able to defend a little bit better, whereas JJ is trying to use it to make picks, to make an opening for their team.
Totally.
And I think that is the main difference about how they're using their Inkjets. And because of that, when JJ decides to pop that Inkjet and they're under fire, it's not as effective as maybe, say, Hawaiian popping that Inkjet and trying to prevent the other team from moving forward, because I think that is maybe I would say a little bit of an easier position to use the Inkjet rather than JJ's more offensive Inkjets.
Saf, naturally, it has to be you that we go to as we announce the next game mode. Game 2 will be Clam Blitz, and I'm pleased to tell you in particular that it is not Museum d'Alfonsino that we will be playing on, but instead Crab Leg Capital for this one, as both teams look to make great use of the sort of lowest elevation of this stage while also sort of cornering the market on these grates that tend to span around the stage.
Well, that makes sense because we all have summer homes at Crab Lake Capital. So Museum d'Alfonsino is where we like to snowbird, but like the summer houses are all at Crab Lake Capital, and that's been proven especially for this top 8 today. I like this pick, especially for Healbook. I like this pick a lot because we've already talked about the greats quite a few times, but just the fact of the matter is that if you have a blaster on your team, don't be on the greats. If there's a blaster as your opponent, like don't catch yourself there, unless you happen to have a really good foothold on objective and like you have people push back in the spawn. Okay, sure, you can play with, you have a little bit of wiggle room there. But if you are in the midst of a team fight, do not find yourself on the grates there. It is a recipe for disaster. You are asking to be a target for whoever the blaster player is, and in this case it's going to be Len and Pika.
It's been a while since we've made a sports reference, but I think Healbook's composition likes to get to what we call the dirty areas, which are sort of the areas that are in corners or not exactly in prime real estate that you need to control in order to be successful. And despite that, we'll have some changes to the composition. Adapt going to be on the slosher instead of, for example, the tri-slosher Nouveau. On the opposite side of things, there's that incline tri-stringer that we saw bring great success, Milana, and the Dapple dualies to boot, although they will lose 2 members early.
Yeah, they do end up going 2 down pretty early, but that's, like we said, we have to focus on a lot of different things with Clam Blitz, but you know, Healbook definitely shows that they know exactly what to do. They already have 19 clams under their belt, including a power clam, so if they can kind of get their footing into this area with that clams basket, they are going to be cooking, you know, like clam chowder or something, right?
Man, that's tough. That's a tough one. Regardless, Healbook, they do fall a bit into the pitfall of building up power clams too early. They did have 2 to help comprise that 19, and now they potentially lose 1 as a result. And Content Cat getting a lot more momentum here as Kronos staying alive in that sort of side alley area that we have. JJ looking to stay alive and make sure nobody from Content Cat can use these grates to their advantage. Gimmy's going to try it, but will have to roll off, and it's a 2v1 situation as Healbook maintains the edge here, Sap.
Yeah, you don't want to catch yourself off guard here, especially with Healbook kind of having a little too much in their pockets. It kind of prevented them from moving forward a little bit. Heavy is the head that wears the crown of like almost 20 power clams in the first minute. Content Cat, though, having Hawaiian on this center stage here and with the power clam ready to go, this is a good position to be in, especially when Healbook is on the back foot and you're taking out aggressors from the long range. A really good trade there going out from Len. Adapt is going to try to make some headway forward here, but they're not going to find much success. Again, finding yourselves called out on the grates, Pika is going to be there to respond. Healbook doesn't really have a lot of space to work with, but because Healbook is confined into their spawning area, Content Cat is having a lot of trouble with entry.
It's so filthy. I mean, Hawaiian just seems like an immovable object until they deign that it's time to move forward. As Kronos going to use the ink back, try and absorb some of what comes through with the triple ink strike. Will take out JJ. Maybe even before that inkjet came out, that's a full wipeout as they get the power clam in. The follow-up comes through. They only had a few clams to their name, but they will continue putting on the pressure as Pika sits under the drop but will jump out. Kronos getting another power clam in. That's a big advantage. They will go down, but Milana, that's a lot of scoring in a very short amount of time. And yet again, we see this semblance that it takes a few minutes for these teams to jockey for position and get themselves online, but Content Cat has gotten a great starting push.
I think what makes this stage particularly difficult is that what you're trying to do, right? You're trying to get the picks to be able to have a little bit of free reign to be able to move forward towards that that clams basket. However, when you do that, you send all of your opponents back into spawn, which is literally right by the clams basket. So what these teams are aiming to do is not only get the picks in the center of the stage, but also when the opponents come back, they're going to have to kind of you know, gather their forces and move forward and hopefully get another team wipe. So I think both teams are very hesitant when it comes to pushing, but as Content Cat was able to get that wipe out on Healbook, they all were able to make a grand push from that. So I think that's what both teams are kind of looking to do right here and adapt in a great position. Len breaking the barrier right here, but they're going to need a couple more clams, more than a couple of clams, to be able to make this push more than worthwhile. Adapt getting a couple more single clams in here. JJ with just possibly 1 clam. Prosper with a power clam, unable to get it in. Are they going to be able to get another member of... They do get that power clam in. They're just going to need 1 more clam to get the lead, but I think that is going to be the end of Healbook's push here, and you know, that's going to give them a penalty that they're going to have to work through before they can even move forward.
You never want to say never until the last second. There was quite a good amount of time for Healbook to make that last plan, but nobody to cement it through with. Pika getting the trade there with the triple splashdown and the super chumps coming out. They're just going to try and keep Healbook as pushed far back as they possibly can. That push looked so strong for Healbook. They had about 5 or more opening picks at their disposal. They have the power clam as we get close to an overtime. Will they have an in? We see Hawaiian on the back end of things trying to play this defense from the top of the grades. Prosper with not enough range to find them. Here comes JJ on the inkjet. Can they find Hawaiian? No, the shot goes high, misses them a few times, and the box blocks that shot. Will they have an in with this big bubble, or they do break the basket? 3 down on the side of Content Cat as JJ pushes forward. They have the protection and they get the lead. A huge push from Healbook, finishing what they started with that last second push, and as a result they will tie this match at 1. Saf,
I have been frozen for like 2 minutes. Like, I've been at the edge of my seat for 2 minutes. I literally was leaning in. I keep getting told to like shift myself so I'm more centered, but I'm like, I'm losing my mind here because Healbook is a team that knows how to play under pressure, and it was proven in those overtime seconds because they started from the very beginning. They were all the way back in their spawn, and I don't care what the numbers said, that was a tie. It said 42-43 with a 29-point penalty. It was a tie. It was a tie when we entered overtime, pretty much. And the fact of the matter is that Healbook can start at the bottom of the mountain and make it all the way to the top in no time at all. So Content Cat needs to keep that in mind moving forward in this set because Healbook is not out yet.
Lily has impressed in my mind that there are up to 3 minutes in this overtime for Clam Blitz, so it can be anyone's game once you make it to that overtime period. And Healbook proving that they have the tenacity to stay and be in this competition this late in our losers finals. Milana, we go to splat zones now, so it finds its way into the messy middle where it's not the first mode to be played, nor will it be the last, as we're guaranteed at least a game 4. And Mako Mart is where we go to. So we've seen Mako Mart a few times on other modes. Now we finally get to see that funky plush shaped zone in action.
Yeah, so we see this specific stage and mode pretty frequently. I think it's lost a little bit of favor as far as the league has gone on for other stages, but it's still tried and true. We do love to see a good Splat Zones Mako Mart. So all these teams are going to be focusing on these boxes that are in the center of the stage. And what is really interesting specifically about this stage is that there is a lot of room for flanking. So you have to make sure that you understand where exactly your opponents are at all times, because you might be hit with an unsuspecting splat bomb or some unsuspecting player behind you that you were not called out for by your teammates. So we want to make sure that we are communicating properly with our teammates, especially for a stage like this.
We'll see if this prompts any swaps over. We do see the Inkline Tri-Stringer return. They'll have the 96 gal as well, so they'll have the Ink back, which could contribute to the zone, of course. Gimme going to be staying on the Dapple Doolies and Saf. The Sorella Brella being the only strange thing meta-wise, but certainly not strange thing for JJ to bring out in this game 3.
I mean, the confidence, once again, Inkjet in the first 15 seconds. I'm not even worried about it. I'm not even worried about it if I am JJ, because I know exactly what I'm trying to do here. Healbook has an incredible opening, it down to 81 points, but who is here to infiltrate? That is Gimme on the Dapple Doolies there. And able to take down 2 nonetheless, and also contributing into the wipeout scenario, which opens the floodgates for Content Cat.
Last time it was the Dapple Doolies Nouveau. They carry on the momentum with this stage on the regular Dapple Doolies. As Content Cat will comfortably take the lead. Pika will get 2 there. 1 with the direct and 1 with the sideways indirect. JJ trying to salvage anything that they can on the Inkjet as Len advances forward and takes down Kronos. Gimme the second as well. Healbook with a great follow-up, Milana, and they'll claim the zone to try and get rid of this minute penalty.
I think it's so cool that Czar has been catching all of these blaster doubles throughout the entirety of this tournament. So Shout out again to Czar for being just a banger spec cam operator. But as we see here, Content Cat still holding tight onto that zone, but it is going to be contested for the time being. Kronos getting a nice pick on that member of Healbook, and hopefully a second here, but JJ using that shield to their advantage. But with Content Cat holding on to this zone, Healbook is still kind of in a position to be able to kind of regroup, use specials, and move in. And that's what we like to see when it comes to a Splat Zones game such as this one. They are able to take the zone, adding a penalty onto Content Cat's score here, but they're going to have to work hard to be able to hold on to that zone.
I mean, this is what I think of when I envision us being this late in the event, is these teams are so back and forth. The team fight wins are so secure each time that they happen that you think one team is taking the advantage, and then the other team comes back and does exactly the same thing. Healbook will hold on to control of the zone for now, and they had it before this Tacticooler comes out. So Content Cat losing a couple members, Healbook will just lose JJ. They'll get the second one down as the Adapt falls. They'll try and get as many members to have that buff of the Tacticooler as Kronos backs off. They do not have Pika to back them up. They won't need them. They'll get the pick onto Len. They'll go down, and the trading of the zone and of player staff continues to play out.
I really like what Prosper is doing here. They're keeping themselves mobile. They're going into the fight where it matters. They were able to take out Kronos. They immediately backed up, but then they got a pick directly after that. So the fact that Prosper is keeping themselves a lot more mobile is really big for Healbook here. Not much left in the way of penalty. The VAC is going to come out supporting two different players of Content Cat. Len, unfortunately, gets called out on their bubble and gets taken down. JJ here to respond, but also gets taken down. And switching over to Gimmy's POV, I mean, who else is left on Healbook? Because Content Cat is here to eliminate the penalty of their own and present in the middle stages ever.
This is just Gimme Gaming. This is how they like to play. They roll around like they have no business being anywhere except their home, which happens to be the entirety of the stage. Is Pika going to survive that onslaught, and Content Cat going to survive holding onto the zone without a penalty that they have to chew through? Pika getting the indirect there onto Prosper, and they're going to be assisted by Gimme with that pick. Moving forward, will anybody from Healbook have time to contest? They just now get JJ's Inkjet that'll come out. They're going to have the Super Chump backing them up. The pick onto Prosper as Gimme is just camping these jump downs, and Healbook with not enough time left to contest. Milana, Content Cat returning to form as they take the knockout and will go up 2-1 in this match.
I mean, like you guys mentioned, it was Gimme Gaming, right? If Healbook doesn't have the number of players that they need to be able to move back into the zone, then that's like it, right? It doesn't even matter the kind of strategies that you bring. You can try to build your specials, but if Gimme gets you before that, then what's the point? So we're seeing all of these picks coming out from Gimme, and just the sheer number of splats that Healbook had to kind of go through. I think that was just that was GG for them. So, I think that Content Cat was just playing such a good game, and especially, like we mentioned, special shout out to Gimme because those splats were just incredible.
Saf, I think you'll likely echo my sentiment when I say of all the matches that we've gotten to see today, I do hope that this one goes to a Game 5, not for any particular reason on the side of either team, just because this Splatoon that we've gotten to witness over these 3 games has been so spectacular, so back and forth, each team answering the other's bell consistently back and forth, and we do have our mode at least for Game 4. It will be Rainmaker, which means if we're left for a Game 5, it'll be Turf War to decide things.
Do you ever watch somebody play a weapon and you're like, yeah, so if I did that, it wouldn't have worked? Because that was me with Gimme for that entire sequence. Like, them jumping and getting somebody over on top of the ledge. I'm like, with what range? You and what army are you able to do that? And then they did. And I'm like, okay, yeah, but if it was anybody else that tried to do that, would the success even be there? I don't know. I feel like Gimme just really does, they just have it. They have it figured out.
Sadly, I am too panicky and unskilled to compare myself to any of
Me
the
too.
players that we've seen in our top 8 today, let alone likely the latter portion of this event. We do have the stage coming in, Milana. It is Undertow Spillway, a pretty usual combination here when looking at Rainmaker, and one that does tend to prompt some swaps over, especially if a team did not previously have an ink vac weapon or a weapon like the Dapple Dualies with beacons to play with.
Yeah, totally. So we might expect some weapon shifts, and especially with a variable team such as Content Cat, we can expect to see those kinds of things. We did see Content Cat come out on top versus Scuba in just that last match. So we know that they are well primed and prepared to be able to tackle this stage and mode. So I'm just curious about how Healbook it might respond as as a result.
And how about the emphasis that we don't usually see on this stage on the right side of the stage? Not just the pedestal that's a little bit closer as a checkpoint compared to the left one, Saf, but also the lead being gained by going up that uninkable 90-degree ramp that we normally don't see teams take.
Leave it to Hawaiian to do that, because that's what they did last time, and they were able to knock off like 30-something points in a blink of an eye. So leave it to Hawaiian to take advantage of the opening on the right-hand side if it is granted to you. However, I do think that Healbook would do a very similar tactic as well. I don't think that Healbook is also above a tactic like that. So I think that Content Cat has to play a little bit closer to the chest here with this one. I feel like they had a little bit more variability earlier on against Scuba, but I don't think that Healbook is going to give them that breathing room.
Well, how about both of these teams swapping over to an Ultra Stamp? It's Hawaiian and JJ, the players that have been dueling it out on the Inkjet, now prioritizing the Ultra Stamp, maybe for that more quick ability to take down the Rainmaker with the throw that we see players typically prioritize. Hawaiian will get right to throwing, just missed Prosper there. Gimme flying around, could not get any picks there. JJ on the Splatana Wiper, among other things, helping to defend for Healbook. And despite that, Hawaiian taking down Len, backed up by Kronos on the ink back, and while Milana, they will not get to the checkpoint. They will make headway at 84.
They do, but I think if you're taking that Rainmaker towards that left path, we want to make sure that we make this push happen, because the points don't really tick super fast if you opt to go this slower but more certain route. So we see Adapt picking up that Rainmaker. A push past 84 is not what Healbook is looking to do. They're looking to kind of move past this checkpoint. Inkvac coming out supporting that Rainmaker. Gimme here trying to get that splat, but the Inkvac shot taking them out instead as well. Kronos getting a nice double. 3 down on the side of Healbook. JJ the last one left. But JJ still getting a trade, but in that case, that's going to be a delayed wipe, giving Content Cat a little bit of room to breathe to be able to pick up that Rainmaker and move forward.
Yeah, it's deja vu a little bit. The Rainmaker ending up in a similar spot as Pika's going to pick up the Rainmaker here. Adapt, by the way, did swap over to that Slosher Nevo again, so they will not be on the regular Slosher as Pika looks for an in to move forward. Kronos not having the ink back to their name. They'll lose multiple members except for Kronos, who will finally get the ink back up, but it's too little too late. Saf 3 down once again for Content Cat. No progress made on either side.
I'm smiling because I thought there was going to be another Inkvac fight, but Kronos unfortunately got taken down before the finale could come to fruition. So Healbook now back into the stage, looking to try to let the Rainmaker reset. Adapt able to defend against Kronos. Kronos was really close to picking up there for a second, but a team like Healbook really well equipped to try to battle flanks as they arise. Gimme looking to be in a 2-1 scenario. Not ideal, obviously, getting taken down in the process. Healbook now, with JJ having that stamp online, they're going to opt to throw it. Maybe got a little bit of damage, but not quite looking for the pick that they were hoping for. Healbook kind of struggling to have a pickup here. Len setting up the bubble could be a really good start to something, but not if Hawaiian has anything to say about it, because already the offense is toppled.
This has been kind of the epitome of today. It's back and forth. It's slow and steady. It's any progress is good progress rather than these emphatic KOs that we're so used to seeing. Kronos even had a slight in, saw the Inkvac come out and said, I'm going to back up and regroup with my team. Gimme did not get the memo once again as they will advance forward and help force a 3-down situation. Now wipe out against Healbook. And with that, Milana, they will have the in to get that first checkpoint down.
And with the popping power that Wellstring has from Hawaiian, it is going to be a little bit of a lead on top of this checkpoint, but 3 down on the side of Content Cat. Oh, you know what? It doesn't matter if they're 3 down, because if Pika can take out the rest of Healbook, it does not even matter. So having Pika still there, waiting to be able to make this push happen, Kronos grabbing that Rainmaker, they are able to push the Rainmaker just a little bit farther forward, and a push to 14 is nothing to scoff at.
That's what you get from veteran leadership. Pika, with so many years and hours on the game, will help to cement a 1 point remaining push from Content Cat. A nice flick with a direct, showing that they don't need to be advancing the Rainmaker. They're just out there having fun and getting splats. It's a 3 down situation finally forced against Content Cat. But Saf, it's going to require a knockout for Healbook to force a game 5.
Outrageous gameplay coming from Pika. Like, the audacity that Pika has to be pulling off things like that with a blaster, with so many obstacles to block, not only block your path, but also take so much of the chip damage that you are trying to deliver. So Pika finding major success with that. Healbook basically has to win the whole thing if they want to try to find success in this game, which is a huge place to be if you are Content Cat, and ideal, especially because Kronos is still going to try to push this forward as much as they can. Even with 20 seconds left remaining, they could try to stalemate it if they wanted to, considering their lead, but they are going to try to close it out nonetheless, and they can do it with 3 members down. And it seems to me that Pika and Gimme have a lot of space to work with to fight the members of Healbook up front there, but I don't know, Zach, it's not looking good for Healbook here.
The last second ticks down. The Rainmaker does not fall soon enough for Healbook, and Content Cat, with an emphatic victory in Game 4 on Undertow Spillway, cements their place in Grand Finals, knocking off Healbook 3-1, and will have the chance to take on NME. And Milana, we look at this Content Cat squad, now the 2nd time in this regular season for the Splatoon 3 North American League 2026 that they will finish 2nd or better in a top 8. That has to feel good from starting all the way back in losers top 8.
Yeah, I mean, the last time that they reached this point was all the way back in week 2, and now we have gone through many, many weeks of this North American League, and they are facing off against a team NME, which is maybe arguably a little less expert than Milky Way. So maybe Content Cat is feeling a little bit pretty confident that maybe they could take at least a couple of games off, hopefully getting that bracket reset from NME.
Saf, I want to let you take a look at this replay because you had a visceral reaction to what Pika was doing on this blaster.
Dude, I am just appalled. I am appalled at what Pika was being allowed to do here. Look at this. JJ is like, hey, wait a minute. Pika's right here. We need to get them out of here. But wait, Hawaiian is here too. But Pika is like, hey, you forgot about me. You forgot about me. And Pika was able to get, I think that was 5 splats in a row. I mean, obviously a well-deserved aura state. I mean, you can have it. You can take it. I wouldn't even try to contest that. But just an onslaught of offense that it was able to secure them that 1 point, keeping them from like the actual closing out of the game. But it put Healbook in a position where it's like, we have to scramble. We have no other choice than to scramble to try to even combat that score. So, I mean, well-deserved win from Content Cat. The fact that they get to fight NME now in the grand final spot, I mean, it's well-deserved. Well-deserved.
Well, let's take a look at the bracket after that fantastic losers finals. Content Cat with the 3-1 victory, and the entire way through the losers bracket, it was 4 consecutive 3-1 match scores in a row. They're hoping their number on the side of their name stays 3 as they get to grand finals now to take on NME in what would need to be a grand finals reset for Content Cat to complete the Cinderella run. This NME squad, Milana, they've only dropped 1 game the entire top 8, a 3-0 against Enroll, and then against Scuba. They go 3-1 against a Healbook team that Content Cat was able to dispatch of. And now, after a long period of dormancy, they come back to try and win this one in grand finals.
Yeah, and they're gonna be really fighting hard for this, right? Because they want those points. All these teams are hungry for points, but especially so Enemy being one of our top teams that I think could really do well in this top 8 placement and hopefully getting a spot at the playoffs as well. So I think these teams are hungry for the win, and maybe even that period of dormancy kind of makes them feel a little bit more motivated to kind of end this quicker.
To remind you of NME as a team, they are 5th out of all teams that have played in the Splatoon 3 North American League 2026 in turf per game, with 4,712.24 as an average combined among their team. 2 times tied for 5th place. That's in week 2 and week 5 in top 8, and then a 3rd place finish in top 8 week 1. Some major wins in those matches. Losses only to teams, Saf, that we mentioned previously that are not here today. The only exception to that is the Duck Motif team that went 0-2 in our top 8 today that they lost to in week 2 of top 8. Otherwise, Milky Way, Cream Soda, Moonlight, not in their way. It's a new foe standing in between them and the ultimate victory.
But I think you could say the same for Content Cat. Content Cat has had a very similar story against those Goliath type teams. So the fact that Content Cat is here, they brutally fought their way through the losers bracket all day long, now finding themselves in grand finals. I mean, this is the battle that, like, this is a very important battle to be watching, because these are the people that are right behind the Milky Ways, the Moonlights, the FT Wins. These are the folks that are literally standing on the heels of those people. So, like, very important match to be paying attention to. And like I was saying before, when we got to see the overall standings, 3 of these teams were like barely scratching the surface of top 8, but this today is going to really punch a ticket for them.
There's something to be said for the advantage going to the team with the hot hand that had to struggle and had to play their way through and ultimately just not really get a break.
Underdog.
They go straight from that exciting losers finals match into grand finals against a pretty imposing enemy team. Milana, we start with what we just saw in the last match. It was our game 3 of losers finals. We have 1 game of an interlude, and then we're right back to it. It's Splat Zones on Mako to kick us off.
Yeah, you know, I can repeat what I said before, right? We want to be able to kind of be aware of where your opponents are, especially for a stage like this. But especially for Enemy, a team that moves so quickly and ferociously, that I think becomes incredibly and especially important.
It's grand finals time between NME and Content Cat. Content Cat hoping they can force a grand finals reset as we take a look at the compositions here for an enemy team that we've not gotten to spectate in a little while. It's pretty standard here, Saf, with likes of the 52 and the heavy Splatling that's really come into the spotlight. And no major surprises either from a Content Cat team that is not able to cap the zone first.
My immediate reaction was like, where's Zero? Zero was all the way on the far side trying to look for a flank, but everybody on Enemy was already in the center stage, ready to initiate the team fight. So Zero was a little late on that one. I saw the vision. I wanted to be known. I saw the vision. It didn't quite work out into their favor because Content Cat cascading down in this first minute of the game.
Well, Chronos saw the success they had with the ink back and with the 96 gallon. They decided to stay on it as Pika could not reprise some of the success they had with the blaster. Gimme goes down as Zero, the one flying by the seat of their pants, as Content Cat Milana en route to easily passing the halfway mark.
They are with just 40 points left on the board, but 2 down going from Content Cat. This is going to be Enemy's chance. And remember, when we have seen Enemy play before, they were not necessarily the first one on the objective. They were not necessarily the first one to break the checkpoints or the first one to cap the zone. But when they did cap the zone, or when they did start to play and, you know, have the objective, they played it very emphatically. So let's see how this plays out for them.
Pika surviving just barely after that triple splashdown, but will fall shortly thereafter. Chronos, the same fate waits them as they go down with the ink back in tow. Trades going out left and right. Enemy coming out of it looking like the better team. A small penalty of about 21 to get through here, Saf. And they are really holding down this mid area, heralded by Zero, who's done a great job with this ends out.
Yeah, I'm just so impressed right now with the opening that Zero has given, because they were in the throes of Chronos' ink back and immediately was able to withstand it, take Kronos out and then jump out, but out of harm's way, and then re-enter the fight and take somebody else again. So I'm just enamored with this type of gameplay. The quick thinking on your feet gameplay coming out from the folks of NME has been so impressive so far. I mean, already with lead taken, there's nobody in sight from Content Cat. Finally, they have a chance to break out into mid. Kronos is really going to help out with their ink back on this one, but getting taken out from the back, and here to respond already is Zero going down in the trade scenario. NME has a really big leg up in the fight so far, but now with Content Cat taking control of the zone with a lot of time left to spare, there is still plenty of time to turn it around if you're Content Cat.
No surprise that it's Hawaiian who starts and ends that push that allows Content Cat to get the zone. Pika having to survive as they're being beset upon by Zero. Milana, you can take the Slayer weapon out of the hands of the Slayer player, but you can't take that Slayer mentality away from them just as easily.
And we've seen this play out throughout this game here, that Zero, despite just having you know, a non-traditional Slayer weapon, is still playing it like a Slayer mentality. So having these picks is going to be huge for Enemy, and as we see Zero kind of you know, meandering around the zone right here, that he is trying to just keep the zone so that they are able to hopefully get this knockout.
Just a few points left to go. A last-second triple splashdown, but it will not be a wipeout to cement things for NME as they pick up where they left off from that winners finals and knock out Content Cat to take game one here on Mako Mart. And Saf, you have to readjust because that was not nearly the back and forth between Content Cat and Healbook that we saw this time around as Content Cat looks to take on a new foe.
Well, it's interesting too, because you have folks on Content Cat that are really experienced fighting the folks on Enemy from last season. So you have folks that like have an idea of what's going to be brought to the table, but it's a totally different group of people from last season into this season. Like, obviously roster changes and okay, whatever. But I mean, even just like general game sense and like energy that you're bringing to your team and also to what you're bringing to the fight. Because Content Cat, especially the absolute heater that Pico was on in that last game, they were really riding a very big boost of energy from that. Probably feeling pretty good about themselves coming into that one. But Enemy is proving that, like, hey, some teams, when they do have a little bit of rest, will come back and swing harder. And I think Enemy happens to be one of those groups.
Yeah, Milana, it feels like the main point of success for Content Cat continued to be Hawaiian, as Enemy did a great job of shutting down Pico. We didn't really see them with any of those insane 2-for-1 blaster shots. We didn't see Gimme have as much success rolling around in the spawn area with the Dapple Dualies this time, and Kronos was oftentimes a sitting duck with that ink vac more so than we saw any tangible benefits, especially surviving long enough to get the actual shot from the ink vac out.
Yeah, well, let's just remember that also Splatoon is a team game, right? So while we do see all of these heroic plays coming out from Hawaiian, it is supported by all the things that their teammates are doing as well. So if their teammates cannot get a footing, really, then they're just kind of a distraction, right? So if we're thinking about it, like say I'm fighting Pika, right? And there's also arrows flying from above. There's a lot of things that I have to kind of divert my attention to. But if I only have one direction, and that's Hawaiian to kind of divert my attention to, it might not be as substantial as it has been in previous matches.
Saf, the fun and games of swapping around what modes we play, seeing Turf War early, seeing Clan Blitz early, feels like that's gone by the wayside as we get serious here for Grand Finals. We go from Splat Zones to Tower Control as our second mode, and it's going to be Hagglefish Market, a pretty tried and true, I believe you called it Final Destination.
I'm glad that we are here. I'm glad that we're here in Tower Control and on Hagglefish, because I feel like this is where I really feel like we need to give Zero his flowers in being like, yes, sir, you can flank. And we are going to give you the stage where you can really shine and do that on. And this is the one to do it, especially because it is such a straightaway. Obviously, it's easy to get called out on your flank here because there's not really a lot of space to work with. Again, a movable object being the wall versus unstoppable force, which is the pit and or the water, which takes you out. So there's not a lot of room to work with here on the sides of Hagglefish, but I feel like somebody like Zero, who is so adaptable in their gameplay and can play really fast, but also get out of harm's way very quickly, I think that's going to be really key here when they try to go into fights with Content Cat. I'm also wondering with Pika, is Pika going to find more success here using a blaster on a tower control match? I mean, I think it is an obvious choice for me. From coming from Pika, so I'm hoping that they are able to find success here, but I also think the maneuverability from enemy is going to be really hard to combat with that.
Well, here's the return of that Bulbs tri-stringer from Hawaiian as we get started here on the enemy side. 3Z going to be playing that 52 gal. It is such a devastating weapon to go up against from an offensive point of view. Some members of enemy, the Forge already going down as Hawaiian getting that high ground with the Inkback, starting it off nice and early here, Milana, and that's going to lead to a 2-down situation against enemy.
And they are, yeah. So this is going to be the start of a push, but that kid back again on those flat dualies, which means that Crab Tank is also going to be coming out. The Crab Tank not getting as much mileage as they would hope for, but that dualies in the right hands is still going to be kind of a formidable foe. So I'm actually really curious about this dynamic between Gimme and between Dat Kid to see how these dualies are going to be playing out for both of these teams.
Yeah, Dat Kid will fall. 3Z, it looked like was next, but stayed alive in that corner and was able to jump out. Pika now on the custom blaster trying to move forward and survive, will not have their triple splashdown for the foreseeable future. And enemy on the opposite side of things with a tactical that I'm not sure many of them Saf are going to get to use, as it was placed very far forward. A Booyah Bomb landing right on top of it, and enemy for the most part staying back in their court.
Yeah, I'm really impressed with Content Cat right now, just because to Mel's point, Dat Kid has so much more range than Gimme does, but Dat Kid was so aware of where Gimme was and taking that fight with them and not following them into the fight. And I'm wondering why that is, because I mean, Gimme just by default has a quicker maneuverability with the Dapple dualies that they're using. But it baffles me that, especially because seeing somebody like Mecha duke it out with Dat Kid earlier, Mecha was having such a hard time Crab Tank-wise keeping up with Dat Kid, but now it's like Dat Kid is holding a lot more respect for Gimme on the Dapple dualies, having way less range here. But in this moment, enemy is going to be having the leg up. The second checkpoint is about to fall here, but Content Cat is struggling on the defense. But see, in that moment here, Dat Kid would let their defenses down for just a second, and Gimme was immediately there to respond. So I'm really finding the dynamic fascinating as well.
Again, that respect for the meta and for the stage and mode that they're on. Dat Kid so often on a brush weapon. We've seen them so much today on the Splat dualies, and it's come through to great effect as now Content Cat, the onus shifts over to them. They lose a couple of members, but have forced a couple of splats onto enemy as well. In that same situation, Milana, where enemy is so far pushed back that there's no way that they can really contest the zone. That bodes well here for Content Cat as they get to checkpoint number 1.
It does. Enemy is going to have to make significant pushes to even make it to this tower, but you know, as I say that, a whole wipeout happens on Content Cat, which means that now this is enemy's chance, maybe not even to push the tower, but definitely to maintain turf of the stage so that it becomes very difficult for Content Cat to make it back from the spawn.
Enemy playing patiently as well. So often we've seen them so far pushed back, and it's the regrouping and the coordination of what they're going to do in that next team fight that's played so well to their success, and why Content Cat has so often in these team fights emerged 3 down or fully wiped out as Pika is forced to retreat. Now enemy looking to at least keep the tower on Content Cat's side of things or try to claim the lead. And Saf, I do kind of feel for Kronos here, for who so often, whenever they've built up their special, has been a frequent target of enemy. In this position, though, they've gotten into that Flow Aura state and are using their main weapon to great effect, holding on to this Booyah Bomb and being a big reason why Content Cat is able to come back.
Oh man, I was like, yeah! And then they went down and I was like, oh, okay, I'm concerned again. I was like, well, I think they're doing really good here. They're really maneuvering well. They're trying to play to distance. They got a little overconfident there and ended up going down in that court area. But hey, bygones be bygones. We can restart it. But not if your team's in a wipeout. Content Cat now finding themselves really down the rabbit hole here. They all have to try to start from the beginning, where 3Z is already there to meet them before they can even open the front door. There's no checkpoint standing in the way to the third one, so that's not really much of a problem. Content Cat just needs to have one more step forward in order to push the tower back into the center stage, which they are successfully able to do, with Hawaiian helping to lead the way with this Inkjet. Hopefully in these last 15 seconds here, Content Cat can try to change the story.
Still tons of yellow on the stage, but Content Cat forcing a 3-down situation. They're going to get Dark to jump back and regroup with the rest of their team, but they'll have the Booyah Bomb in the remaining seconds. Dakkid also has the Crab Tank and is able to tank the triple splashdown as Chronos dueling Booyah Bombs. They form a Venn diagram with each other, and that's going to be a lost tower as Chronos just misses and is unable to mantle back onto that tower. Milana, this is a love letter from NME to the fans of Splatoon watching today, to the style of gameplay that they bring to the table here as they take a commanding 2-0 game lead in this match.
Yeah, I mean, like, you can't really do very much if you keep getting constantly team wiped, right? If you have no players up on the stage, that gives so much to your opponents, right? It gives turf, it gives objective, it gives the ability for your opponents to build specials while you're coming back from spawn. So there's a lot of things that you're giving up when you have these team wipes, and having Content Cat go down twice in this game was just not so... It was not good for them, and really it gave enemies such an advantage as far as being able to build and even continuing moving with their momentum, moving with that aggression to kind of push that objective forward, or even just to push themselves forward so that Content Cat couldn't make it back into that tower. I think is just extremely notable.
And Saf, for NME, it's never flashy. It is a very standard composition. Nothing is making you say, wow, I can't believe I'm seeing that. I'm so surprised. It's not the insane, 3 or 4 man takedowns that we've seen from other players, but it is consistent. It is successful, and they clearly are backing each other up and communicating very well.
It's not flashy, but it's enough of a threat, which I think is like the ideal position that you want to be in. Earlier, when we got to see on Urchin Underpass Splat Zones, when Healbook was taking on NME, again, I want to bring up 3Z again. 3Z was just constantly luring people into their corner because they're like, you have to come and fight me. I'm a 52 gal. If you let me have an inch, I'm going to take 3 miles. So you have to come and fight me and be enticed to do it. And I feel like it's the same thing here with Content Cat. They're not going to do anything flashy, but just sheerly by their force and like their gameplay, that you have to try to do something first. You have to bring the fight to them. You have to be on your toes constantly around folks like NME. So I think Content Cat, while they kind of have the more fun gimmick on their side with getting to play things that I think really like speak to their skill level, I feel like NME is like, we already know the formula. We have the tools for success. We have it figured out. All of the pieces of our puzzle fit really well, and we don't want to change it. So I think with Content Cat coming forward here and trying to see if they can turn it around, you have to maybe almost reflect what NME is doing. You want to try to entice NME to come to you and bring the team fight to you, but also just try to push themselves in a situation to where they let their guard down. And I feel like Content Cat is a little more prone to that versus NME.
It is going to be a familiar location and mode as we see NME with their final mode selection will go over to Rainmaker. It'll be Undertow Spillway for a potentially deciding game 3. NME looking for the sweep. Dakkid with a Sploosh-O-Matic. That's right. It is not a Splash-O-Matic, Milana. A Sploosh-O-Matic to bring things out. We did see on this stage a swap from Inkjets over to Ultra Stamps, but I did not expect that to come through. I guess NME was listening and said, hey, we'll bring a weapon that you're not expecting. How about this Sploosh-O-Matic?
I kind of dig it. I really do. We affectionately, or maybe less affectionately, call this the rat weapon. And I think it really fits with Dakkid's playstyle, where we can be able to kind of sneak around back. We can kind of do a little bit of flanking here. We can really hit the opponents with something that they are not really expecting, in the same way that we got hit with a Splushiomatic and we were not expecting that. So, you know, I think it's a really interesting pick, and I'm really interested to see how he kind of works with that.
Well, the wipeout forced against Content Cat cuts their Rainmaker barrage short at 90. Gimme able to perform some Gimme gaming magic there. We're spotted after that beacon was broken, but able to survive with the dodge rolls. And Saf, this is potentially for Pika especially a moment to maintain their absolutely incredible plays, because this was where we saw them pop off with that blaster before.
I'm forced to believe that Gimme's name is a force of manifestation, because they were like, they were caught dead to rights. I mean, the beacon got taken out. Their circle is right there. It's like, yeah, bang, boom, case closed. But literally, Gimme, they rolled out of the way, they took out their threat, and were able to stay alive in that. So again, a player that you cannot underestimate, even when they are jumping in. You cannot underestimate what they are planning to do. Enemy down to the 60-point mark. They have the first checkpoint under their belt here. And with Rainmaker in possession, this is a really good spot to be, especially because Content Cat is on the respawn. You have multiple folks trying to build special to see if they can break in. Gimme is already there to respond. Zero, though, really quick to try to lob this Rainmaker shot in the place that it needs to be. Trying to maybe suspend their push a little bit is Pika, but Pika's going to not find much value after taking out the Rainmaker. So Rainmaker's still in the middle section, even though enemy has the upper hand. The right side, though, was looking like the advantageous spot to be, even with two Inkbacks going off at the same time.
Dueling Inkvax as Dark tries to prevent Kronos from getting the Rainmaker onto the pedestal, and in that endeavor they will be successful. So another hurdle, Milana, for Content Cat to come over, as enemy not only stops them from getting that first checkpoint, but a wipeout there, and they'll continue it on as Pika, the last player anywhere close to mid for Content Cat.
You know, I feel like maybe enemy was watching the stream earlier and was like, wait a second, hold on, we can't let Content Cat go this way on that right side over there, so let's make sure that push doesn't happen. But as we are talking, Zero is just moving his way through that ink. The push is still not done. That kid holding on to the Ultra Stamp, and they are able to make that push all the way till 10, which is such a strong push for Content Cat to have to kind of fight back against. You know, they're going to have to play their best game here. There's still 1 minute and 45 left on the clock, but in a game of Rainmaker, that time ticks fast.
And Saf, the irony is not lost on me that while in the last match, Content Cat forced their enemy to basically need a knockout to proceed, now Content Cat will effectively need a knockout if they want to win this one and continue the match.
Effectively need a knockout, but are we sure? Because they just popped to the other checkpoint and Pika is once again popping off. I've come to the conclusion that you cannot let Pika get comfortable on this left-hand corner here. Kronos might be the one to open that up for them, though. They had the Inkback, they had two players in their grasp. That's two members of enemy going down in tow. Gimme having the Rainmaker. Unfortunately, though, the bomb is going to end the push there for them, but not the presence. Hawaiian is going to try to jump through very similarly to what we saw last time, even though it was on the right-hand side down to the 15. Enemy, though, able to finally push Content Cat into the wipeout with that kid screaming to the heavens, because you have to wonder what's going on in that voice chat for that to happen.
Mirrored pushes, but one more successful than the other as enemy maintains their lead. The Ultra Stamp will not land for Content Cat as Dark is just going to take the high ground as Kronos with that ink back out once again. Under 30 seconds left to go. Dark being beset upon and will finally fall as Hawaiian helping to contribute there, but it's a 2v2 now. Hawaiian, the only one remaining. Can they use the Ultra Stamp in time? They trade with Zero. It's another wipeout for enemy. A bit of a celebration from Dat Kid, who's similarly holding onto an Ultra Stamp themselves, looking for any picks with 5 seconds left to go to stop any hope of Content Cat moving forward. Hawaiian the last alive, but it won't matter. Enemy cementing the 3-0 sweep in grand finals against Content Cat, and they will be your regular season week 6 champions. And Milana, what a performance from these teams. Give me the full breakdown of everything you saw in that grand finals.
Every single thing that I saw.
Every single thing. Let's just run it.
You know,
all back again.
She's a chameleon.
It was just so incredible to watch how just, you know, if I was to describe Enemy, it's a well-oiled machine. They just know exactly where to be when somebody goes down. All right, what do we need to do next? Their comms are just impeccable, I'm sure, to be able to kind of communicate all of what is going on, to be able to react to the things that Content Cat is doing, and to be able to kind of, you know, instigate all of these team wipes that is made their meaning enemies, run so successful. So, you know, congratulations to them for winning.
We'll take a look at the final version of the bracket here, Saf, as once again, Content Cat with such a similar story to week 2. This magical losers run all the way through to grand finals, but a second place finish as NME drops just one game at the entire top 8 and ends up winning regular season week 6.
If nothing else, this is the classic underdog or undercat story for Content Cat today. This is like classic. It's starting your day in top 8 in the loser side of things, and then working your way all the way up to grand finals. Sure, maybe not finding success. Enemy did have some rest, and they, you know, cracked the old knuckles and everything. So definitely a little bit more prepared on that one, sure. But Zach, I have to go back to Dat Kid booyahing of multiple times mid-game, and thank you, Czar, again for catching that, because in my mind, like, we've all been in a really hyped voice chat when you're doing really well in a game, and you have, you know, like, you're all like, you're getting splats, you're doing things, you're like, nice! 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 Like, I can only imagine that, like, a variant of that is going on in voice chat with Dat Kid booyahing. I can only imagine that is what's happening.
Well, I want to get some final thoughts, but let's take a look at the schedule first for the Splatoon 3 North American League 2026. Tomorrow, May 24th, we have the Sunday Scrim. It's every Sunday through June 7th at noon Pacific time. We'll have the next episode of the Splatoon 3 North American League 2026 show on Friday, May 29th at 10 a.m. Pacific. And Event 9 regular season week 7 will take place at Saturday, May 30th at noon Pacific time, with the top 8 live stream starting as always at 4 p.m. Pacific. And it all leads up to the Splatoon 3 North American League 2026 playoffs happening June 20th and 21st. Both times live streams are going to be starting at noon Pacific time. Alana, we'll start with you. Final thoughts on an exciting regular season week 6.
I just love to see the level of play that these teams are bringing, right? Yes, we know that Enemy is incredibly good, but we saw a lot of really good matches throughout this tournament today. We saw, you know, Heelbook coming back with that losers bracket run. We saw, you know, like we mentioned, Content Cat just fully running through losers bracket and being able to kind of showcase what kind of skills they've brought to the forefront, that what kind of skills they've built together as a team. And I think that for me is just so rewarding to see. So I hope that all of the teams that decide to continue to play do so, and with the mindset that improvement is there and we can see it every week.
Saf, it was a week of movement of teams that have been yearning for that upper echelon of competitive play, clawing their way closer to a potential playoff experience. What are your takeaways?
So no shade. No shade whatsoever. I am actually glad that this is the top 8 that we had today. I already said it earlier, but just the competition that we got to watch unfold, I am more firm in my stance that I'm really glad that some of these really big names didn't show up today. And I just think that is important, mostly just for the scene as a whole. But I think it's important to also notify that, like, these are the up and coming people. Should ever these top folks step down or play less in events like this, these are the people that you need to be paying attention to. And so I'm like the content, and I mean like the Content Cats, the enemies of the world. These are the ones that you need to be paying attention to, because these are the ones that are going to be filling those shoes eventually. So I'm really glad that these are the folks we got to watch, and I'm tickled pink. I'm so entertained by what we got to watch today, and I'm so happy for Enemy that they got to have a really good closeout for week 6.
As for me, I'm just happy to be here. So thank you so
True.
much to my wonderful supporting casters, my fantastic production crew, Czar on the spec cam, catching so much of the amazing moments today. Obviously to the players that did their best out there today, and to all of you viewers at home. But that is going to do it for Event 8, regular season week 6 of the Splatoon 3 North American League season 2026. Congratulations once again to Enemy on their victory. And until next time, we'll see you later.